Chapter 63. The daily life of the popular pride in the grasslands was updated about once a day. Sometimes it would be updated twice or thrice. The frequency of the update depended on the content of the day. The 6 lions who loved hanging on trees were one of the most popular big pride in the grasslands. That was why they were updated more often than others. For example, when they hung on trees today, their fans were able to see them before the sky turned dark and point at them. It wasn't unreasonable to say that lions had a responsibility to protect the trees. After all, the grasslands were their home. The reason the word big was in double quotation marks was because 6 of them was definitely not big enough to be called big. At the very least, compared to the equally popular Northern Alliance, the Northern Alliance was nothing. The fans of African lions loved to watch the videos of the Northern Alliance's battles because they were exciting and hot-blooded. Who wouldn't love to watch them when they won every battle? However, later on, they watched the recording of the 6 Lions Alliance. At that time, the lions of this small alliance were still young and had not become strong. They saw that the half-grown lion leading them was full of tricks every day. He had a kind of cleverness and intelligence, so people actually watched with relish. They felt that this pride of lions was quite interesting. After 3 years of catching up, people grew to like this pride more and more. It was because the life they presented was always positive, such as patience, courage, hard work, family friendship, and many other beautiful things. In the past half-year, the number of fans of the 6 Lions Alliance had increased by more than 3 times. This number had already surpassed the era of the Norman twin lions when the internet wasn't too developed yet. Of course, the most gratified people were the old fans of the Norman family. For the past half-year, their families could hear them praising and introducing their favorite pride every day. Today, they even obtained a hunting/fighting achievement. There was a word that left a bad impression: lion bragging. Yolanda's fans were all lion braggers. The only difference was that other braggers would be rolled their eyes at, but Yolanda's braggers were cute and didn't usually get rolled at. Because Yolanda was a good lion who didn't have a single black mark on his body. Even the most hardcore haters in the entire internet couldn't find a single point to criticize him. Previously, he had abandoned the pride of lions and left alone, causing White Lion to be injured. However, now that he had returned, the haters could not attack him. They could only complain that the 5 Norman brothers were not weaned and could not achieve great things. The fans of the 6 Lions Alliance were very polite, and no one replied to their retarded comment. "Why are you giving me that look?" Every day, she would see 6 handsome, cute, and capable lions living a happy life on the grassland. How happy! The Northern Alliance was 60 kilometers away from the 6 Lions Alliance's territory, but they had a very different family atmosphere. This huge pride with 4 lions and 16 female lions was almost recognized as the pride with the strongest combat strength in the north and south. This was because their lions were still in their prime. They were violent and aggressive, keen on expanding their territory, and did not show mercy to other lions in battle. Previously, when they met doe by the riverside, they had attacked it because of the tyrannical temperament that was hidden deep in their bones. Sunset, next to the swamp. A group of strong lionesses of the Northern Alliance had captured a water buffalo, but they did not have the right to enjoy the delicious meal first. For hungry lions walked over and angrily drove away the lionesses who were licking their prey's blood. They wanted to make space for them so that they could eat heartily beside their prey. Although the lionesses were hungry as well, they could only lick their lips and wait in the face of the lion's threat. Otherwise, they would lie on their stomachs and rest. In a pride with a strict hierarchy, it was normal for the lionesses to eat after the lions finished their food. At this time, a group of 7 to 8-month-old lion cubs ran over. The smell of fresh blood made the hungry cubs forget their previous lesson. They carefully approached the prey and tried to bite off a piece of meat. Roar, however, the lions who were eating immediately roared at them, scaring them into running away. And this lion that was roaring at them was very likely their father. The lionesses came over and took the cubs away to prevent them from being attacked. However, the cubs were obviously reluctant to leave their food. After all, they had just licked a bit of blood. These cubs were not the only second-generation lions in the pride. In fact, there were 3 subadult lions who were about to turn 2 years old. This was a sensitive period where they could be expelled at any time, so the 3 brothers were especially cautious. They were afraid that the lions would find them an eyesore and chase them out in a fit of anger. Of course, the longer a subadult lion stayed in the pride, the better. This was because the chances of death would increase if they wandered out too early. Generally speaking, it was not impossible to maintain a good relationship with an adult lion and shamelessly stay until they were 2 years old. After the 4 lions had eaten their fill and slowly left the prey's side, the lionesses and cubs quickly surrounded them. They wolfed down the lions' leftovers, trying to fill their stomachs in the shortest time possible. The cubs lived in a cruel environment. Even with their mother's care, they could only rely on their own survival instincts and snatch as much food as possible. If their physique could not keep up, then their fate was to be eliminated. While the lionesses and cubs were eating, the 4 lions seemed to be lying lazily nearby, but in reality, they were constantly paying attention to the commotion. The moment something happened that they did not like, they would immediately rise up and attack. The subadult lions, who had learned how to read people's body language, only dared to carefully divide the few leftovers when the lionesses and cubs were almost done eating. This was also one of the methods the lions used to chase away the subadult lion. Without food, they would naturally leave the pride. The photographer couldn't help but feel sorry for the 3 scrawny subadult lions. They were clearly not of age yet, but they were already being ostracized by the adult lions. This was not surprising. After all, the Lion Kings of the Northern Alliance were notorious for their ruthlessness. They naturally would not allow the almost mature lions to eat and drink for free in their territory. The younger generation and the older generation were natural competitors. Some of the more extreme lions would even bite their own cubs to death, leaving only the lionesses behind. One could only say that there was a big difference between lions, just like the difference between humans. There were good lions who valued relationships, and there were cruel and ruthless lions who were bad. The 3 subadult lions finished the remaining food, but they still did not feel full. The lionesses seemed to have no intention of hunting anymore. At the very least, they would need to rest for a while. While waiting for their next meal, the subadult lions obediently hid away, not wanting to be an eyesore in front of the other lions. Their mother was a strong lioness. Perhaps out of pity for the 3 children, the lionesses ignored the lions' expressions and stood up to hunt again. The cubs' 2 aunties also followed. The 3 subadult lions seemed to have sensed something. With their strong desire to survive, they quietly followed their mother's footstep. This scene fell into the 4 pairs of cold yellow eyes. After the video was updated that day, the fans of the Northern Alliance were worried about the 3 subadult lions. The lioness's action of giving the subadult lions special treatment is a disaster. Old Saw and the others will definitely chase the cubs away. The 4 brothers are good at everything, but aren't they a little too cruel? They can't even tolerate their own sons. The cubs are only a little over a year old. They haven't reached the age of separation yet. Yes, it's their nature to invade other lions. But I think they should be gentler to their own flesh and blood. Gentler, my ass. You even bit your own daughter's spine in half just because she stole a bite of his food. That's nothing. A few years ago, they even killed wandering lionesses to eat during the dry season. I remember it was the lionesses from the Norman Alliance. That video made my scalp tingle. The lionesses of the Norman Alliance? Isn't that the aunts of the 5 brothers of the 6 Lions Alliance? Yalashanda, revenge. Really? That's a new grudge. Yalashanda, the ones who attacked your white lion were also lions from the Northern Alliance. Damn, are there a lot of passers-by here? Why did the Northern Alliance fans call other lions for revenge? Also, are you sure you're not here to die? We're not Northern Alliance fans. We're just here to see how cruel you four brothers are. We'll wait for you to kill your own sons tomorrow. Kill your grandpa. Haters, get out of the comments section. Don't talk nonsense here. Some people are really. They're just beasts. It's understandable that they're cruel. There's no reason for us to use human standards to measure their actions, right? Nature my ass. If you think cruelty is a lion's nature, then please move to the next door and watch the daily life of the 6 Lions Alliance. After watching, you'll know what kind of trash the Lions of the Northern Alliance are. They don't take responsibility, they don't love, they only know how to be in heat and kill. I'm not the only one who thinks so. Ugh, I want to vomit. I'm going to watch Yelashanda to wash my eyes. Yelashanda fans, calm down. Don't embarrass Yelashanda. We're all realistic and civilized fans. Beautiful. What a good realistic. Beautiful. Realistic. The fans of the 4 brothers of the Northern Alliance knew the lions very well. The next day, the 3 subadult lions who were taken care of by the lionesses were violently expelled from the pride. At this time, the 3 brothers who were expelled were less than 2 years old and had no ability to survive. The 4 cruel rulers didn't care about this. If the lionesses hadn't interfered a little, the 3 cubs might have been killed. It was hard to accept the fact that their chances of survival were very small if they went out to explore with their age and condition. After watching today's update, the people who were chasing after the pride changed the channel with heavy hearts. They went to the official account of the 6 Lions Alliance and watched Yelashanda's family. Compared to the adult lions of the Northern Alliance, who didn't even give their cubs a chance to eat, the 6 Lions Alliance was the complete opposite. Recently, one of the 5 brothers in their pride had suffered a very, very small injury because they had taken back their territory. It was very likely that it was not even 1/3 of the White Lion's injury. However, the lions still removed him from the position of the main hunting force and did not allow him to participate in the hunt again. This injury was not worth mentioning in the other prides. During his recovery, he was treated just as well as White Lion. His brothers and Yelashanda gave him food. He was even chased by Yelashanda to feed him. People couldn't help but laugh at their loving interactions. It was almost impossible to see a pride like this in Africa. It was hard to imagine what it would be like if the 5 brothers grew up in a pride of lions. The good-tempered Yelashanda still loved White Lion as much as before. Recently, he and White Lion's relationship was so good that it was almost like they were in their honeymoon period. It didn't seem like there was any estrangement because of the previous incident. They often stayed together to bask in the sun and lick each other's fur. Occasionally, the photographer would take a close-up of their interaction. It was so gay that people couldn't look at it directly. The most surprising thing was that White Lion used to be the one acting spoiled to Yelashanda like a lion who hadn't been weaned off milk. Now, it was Yelashanda's turn to act spoiled to White Lion. More specifically, she was sticking to White Lion more often. Maybe it was because of the previous incident, but White Lion had become more mature. Even if he didn't participate in the hunt or battle recently, he looked like a sharpened blade. After all, he was a lion who had fought against 2 adult lions alone and escaped death. The scar on his abdomen was his badge of honor. From now on, he was destined to walk a different path from his brothers. A month later, Ao Daisai participated in his first patrol after recovering from his injury. Little Bear, who was lazy to the point of juice, also followed him out for a walk. This time, Ao Daisai and Xiao Qishi were in one group, and the other 4 brothers were in another. In terms of combat effectiveness, there was nothing wrong with this division of labor. Even the photographers felt that it was reasonable. Recently, there had been some unrest in the north. Through the incubation of the rainy season, many new generations with unlimited potential were born. Except for some stable lions, many of the pride were replacing the old with the new. But what did this have to do with Little Bear? Of course, it had something to do with it. He had said that he wanted revenge. Moreover, the cubs were about to enter adulthood, weren't they? As their parents, they should consider marrying them a wife. On the way, Qiao Qishi was thinking about this. Ao Daisai would stop and wait when Little Bear fell behind. That gentleness when he turned his head was filled with blind love. Qiao Qishi trotted up and rubbed his ears and temples with Ao Daisai. When he was kissing him, he suddenly thought, is this a date with Ao Daisai? Halfway through their patrol, the two lions actually stopped to play under a tree. You scratch me with your claws, I bite your tail. Photographer, anti-smile. After all, this was the world of two lions. Qiao Qishi felt that he had to whisper to Ao Daisai. Although he knew that Ao Daisai would not understand his plan, his old father was anxious. On the way to patrol, he kept shooting at Ao Daisai. Whoa, how annoying. Where should he find the lionesses? If he invaded the lionesses, what should he do with the cubs? Ao Daisai did not know what Little Bear wanted, but when Yalashanda kept howling, he would respond. Sometimes it was his voice, sometimes it was his actions. Perhaps he could not grasp the complicated information, but he knew that Little Bear was acting coquettishly. In Qiao Qishi's eyes, Ao Daisai's expression was, okay, whatever you say. You make the decision. Little Bear, please call me the godly translator. Although it was like a chicken talking to a duck, it did not matter. He felt very happy. As for the problem of finding wives for the children, it was up to fate. After patrolling, Ao Daisai had to participate in the hunt. Obviously, he had his own judgment of his injuries. Even if Qiao Qishi tried to stop him, she could not turn the situation around. Ao Daisai was too domineering. When he listened to him, he was coaxing him. Once he made up his mind, he would never compromise. Dog men really did not distinguish between species. However, Yalashanda licked her lips as she ate the zebra that the dog man had hunted. She was still very happy. Hello, everyone. This handsome lion is my boyfriend. And these 4 majestic little lions were raised by me. Please call me the most awesome winner on the grassland. Purple Lightning, who was also recuperating, had already recovered from his injuries. There was only a shallow scar left. Fur had not grown out yet, but he believed that it would recover soon. On the other hand, Ao Daisai's abdominal scar would probably be difficult to completely remove. Qiao Qishi's heart ached every time she licked the scar on her boyfriend's abdomen. Revenge. Goddammit, I will definitely take revenge. He had already memorized the scents of the two lions. If they appeared within 5 kilometers of him, he would definitely be able to recognize them again. However, Qiao Qishi did not know that the two lions had an alliance. If they fought seriously, both sides would probably suffer heavy losses. Fortunately, there was no chance of a direct confrontation right now. The only interaction between the two alliances was at the riverside. Norman's fans were conflicted. They wanted the 6 lions to fight the Northern Alliance and avenge their humiliation, but they also did not want them to take the risk. In the end, the smart fans compromised and hoped that the 6 lions would kill the 4 brothers while they were in bad condition. It was a good idea. Time passed slowly and it was already April. On this morning, the 6 lions were still sleeping soundly in their territory. Suddenly, they were woken up by the movements of the lions next door. The lions were fighting, and it sounded like a fierce battle. Qiao Qishi knew that the lion next door was the territory of the lionesses. 2 of the lionesses had given birth to cubs about a month ago, and he wanted to take a look at them when he went on patrol recently. However, he was suppressing himself for the sake of peace between the 2 alliances. Now, the male lion in the pride next door was being challenged. If the 2 of them lost, all the cubs in the territory would be bitten to death, and the pregnant lioness would be exiled. Yalashanda thought for a moment before shouting at his companions. Let's go. Let's fight. All the lions were stunned, including Ao Daisai. He seemed to be very impatient with the invasion of unfamiliar lions. The lions stretched lazily under the tree, and then trotted towards the pride next door. The photographers who came to work in the morning arrived at the territory, but there was not a single lion under the tree. It was such a big pride of lions. Then, they heard the movements of the lions next door. The photographers who knew Yulashanda's pride well thought that the curious lions must have gone to join in on the fun. Thus, they naturally had to follow. Early in the morning, the Melissa lions were being severely injured by a group of wandering lions. They seemed to have just reached adulthood, and 6 or 7 of them had gathered. This was a rather terrifying number. In order to protect their children, the lactating lionesses also joined the battle. However, they were in despair because the 2 lions and the lionesses alone could not resist the invasion of 7 lions. Fortunately, the 2 lions did not retreat. They took on the responsibility of protecting the pride and refused to compromise even if they were injured. However, if they did not escape, they would undoubtedly die under the mouths of the 7 young lions. From the looks of it, this was their fate. One of the lions in the Melissa lion's pride was pinned down by 2 wandering lions that had invaded the territory. He was about to enter the countdown to death. The most soul-stirring and desperate people should be the photographers who had followed the pride for a long time. They had just been happy that the pride had given birth to cubs, but now they were about to face the bad news of the pride disintegrating. However, things seemed to have taken a turn for the better. The 6 lions of the 6 Lions Alliance next door came to join in on the fun. Oh no, to save their neighbors! They had actually come. Roar! An angry roar descended from the sky. Before the 2 wandering lions who were planning to dismember their opponents could turn around, they were bitten to the ground by a force. Big Yuanzi and second brother Qingfeng were quarreling, while the other pounced on an opponent with a solemn expression. This action undoubtedly saved the lion that was about to die. The lions that followed behind each looked for their own opponent. Yulashanda liked cubs the most. He helped the 2 lionesses take over the burden of battle and asked them to focus on taking care of the cubs. This was the first battle after Ao Daisai recovered. This white lion ran over from afar and pounced on a lion. He bit the back of the other party's neck and used his hands, mouth, and feet to throw the other party out with the force of his sprint. The strength he displayed stunned the photographers. Starting a run-up from afar was a habit that only polar bears had. They were very good at using their weight to fight. The lions that had just reached adulthood were no match for Ao Daisai. In Ao Daisai's eyes, they were too inexperienced. Perhaps Ao Daisai did not even take them to heart. The burden on the lions of the Melissa lions in the battle was instantly lifted. The arrival of Yulashanda's pride immediately turned the situation around. The 7 wandering lions were handed over to the lions to fight. The lionesses immediately withdrew from the battle and covered the cubs as they left. Many of the strong lionesses who were not breastfeeding remained nearby to watch the battle. When one of the invading lions was at a disadvantage, they did not hesitate to swarm forward to fight. The Melissa lion's pride was named after the lionesses because their ancestor had a legendary lioness whose combat strength was not inferior to that of the lions. She had created an era. Like mother, like daughter. They weren't bad at all, having survived to this generation. The author has something to say. Lionesses, we sisters have taken a liking to you. Jojo, except for me and that white one. You can do whatever you want with the rest. The original lions? Chapter 64. In the grasslands, it was rare for lionesses and lions to work together to defend against their enemies. This was inevitable, because the invading lions only wanted to chase away the lions to obtain the right to reproduce. They would not harm the lionesses at all. When the cubs were less than 6 months old, most of the lionesses would weigh the pros and cons. Whether or not the investment of 6 months was worth it for them to resist the lions with all their might was a helpless trade-off. The unlucky 7 wandering lions had unfortunately met Melissa's pride. Even though the cubs they gave birth to were only a month old and did not have much affection for the cub's father, This was not a reason for them to surrender. People had long expected that when Melissa's pride was invaded, the lionesses would not easily compromise. However, they had never expected that in this battle where there was a huge disparity in battle strength, there would be such a variable. When their neighbor's territory was mercilessly invaded, Yelishanda, who was publicly recognized as the most handsome and good-tempered person in the grasslands, actually led her pride to provide support. Of course, they did not rule out the possibility of taking advantage of the situation. With the help of the 6 strong lions from the neighboring alliance, the arrogance of the 7 invading wandering lions immediately dissipated. First, the lion that was thrown out by Aodisai immediately crawled up and roared as it fled. It seemed that the 2 lions that were related to it by blood heard the summons and hurriedly retreated and fled. In fact, the young lions that did not have much fighting experience did not have the courage and skills to fight at their peak. Looking at the speed at which they fled with their tails between their legs, it was clear that they were extremely fearful of this group of foreign reinforcements. After the lion regiment that relied on numbers to win was utterly defeated, the remaining 4 also fled one after another. Roar! The hot-tempered eldest brother, de Unz, led his 2 younger brothers to chase this group of invaders a few kilometers away, chasing them far away from their territory. The ferocity of their opponents and the wounds on their bodies would probably cause the 7 young lions that had suffered defeat to not dare to step into the territory of Melissa's pride again. This was because the fear of defeat here would always follow them. On the battlefield that had regained its calm, a strange atmosphere appeared at this moment. Pride had always been in a competitive relationship, and there was no need to extend a helping hand. In the eyes of the 2 adult lions in Melissa's pride, these 6 lions that had descended from the sky were as dangerous as the invaders. However, they were already injured in the battle just now. Regardless of whether it was one-on-one or in terms of numbers, they were no longer able to fight against this group of lions who were in good condition. Furthermore, the lionesses of Melissa's pride were watching from the sidelines and had no intention of resisting with them. After all, the 2 male lion brothers were injured and their combat power was limited. At least the female lions who had not given birth seemed to have given up on them. In the nearby audience, the 2 female lions with cubs were hiding in the grass. 2 pairs of worried eyes were watching the movements of the lions. If the 2 injured lions gave up resisting and chose to escape, they would also bring their children away from the pride. This was because when a new lion joined the pride, it would definitely bite the cubs that had already been born to death. Aodisai, Qiaoqishi, and Purple Lightning were the only ones left at the scene. They did not show any hostility towards the 2 injured lions. Qiaoqishi, who had just finished fighting, was eagerly looking at the cute figures of the cubs. Little did he know that his actions would cause the lionesses to be anxious. Fortunately, he did not move. Aodisai, who was moving his thin waist and calming his breathing, felt countless pairs of prying eyes. These gazes all landed on Yelishanda. The white lion narrowed his charming eyes and cast a warning gaze at the female lions. At the same time, he licked his bloody fangs. This not only made the lionesses perk up their ears vigilantly, but even the photographers were very worried that the 2 prides would fight again. However, they knew that whether this fight could start or not still depended on Yelishanda's intentions. People believed that he would not attack the cubs. Indeed, Yelishanda rubbed against the white lion, who was still full of fighting spirit. He let out the joy of victory from his throat, as if he was sharing his feelings with his companions. After saving the cubs, Qiaoqishi was naturally very happy. The fight was finally over. Let him see the cubs. After rubbing his head against the little bear, Aodisai calmed down and retracted his dangerous gaze. He no longer threatened the female lions. The vigilant female lions relaxed and continued to look at the strong lion. As one of the only 3 adult lions present, Aodisai's little bear was handsome and strong. He had extraordinary combat power and also had the leadership style of a leader. It seemed inevitable that the female lions of Melissa's pride would take a fancy to him. Hence, they all lay down and showed an attitude of watching from the sidelines. The general idea was to accept Yelishanda into their pride. However, Yelishanda, who only had the cubs and Aodisei in his heart, did not receive the lioness's goodwill. He glanced at the cubs hiding in the grass and went to Aodisei's side to wait for the other lions to return. Purple Lightning squatted at the side casually. He seemed to be cleaning the messy fur on his body, but in fact, his cold eyes were always glancing at the two injured lions lying on the ground. Even if he did not take the other party seriously, he was still as careful as ever. This was Third Brother's personality. The strange situation in front of them was unexpected by the two teams of photographers. They thought that Yelishanda had come over to take the opportunity to occupy the pride and then drive the original lions far away. However, that was not the case. It was very amazing. All the bad behavior that would happen to lions did not happen to Yelishanda. He was chivalrous and special. Not long after, Diunzi, who had driven away the invaders, led the team back. Yelishanda went forward and rubbed against them. He then circled around them, as if he was checking if the lions were injured. The three brothers who had worked hard to join the battle with their parents were not injured. They were just panting because of the long run. They looked exhausted, so they simply lay down and panted with their mouths open. This was not what Xiao Qishi had expected. He had originally planned to wait for the three brothers to return before leaving their territory. After all, it was very sensitive to visit people on the grassland. Roar! He did not care that Diunzi and Qingfeng were panting like dogs. After all, it was not good to cause a misunderstanding. The lions here would think that they were also here to invade. Hence, he thought that it was better to lead the way and leave. Seeing that Xiao Qishi was leading the way and leaving, Aodisei and Purple Lightning also slowly walked away. Their simple action of leaving proved that they were just here to help. Photographer. Good, the only example in the grassland of Africa. You guys are very stylish. How should I put it? The actions of these 6 lions made people feel like they had a very beautiful and warm dream. The very loyal 5 yellow and 1 white were preparing to leave. Well, the 3 yellow lions did not seem to have followed. They were still lying on the ground and refused to get up. To be honest, the 3 brothers were now tired and hungry. Before they came to help, they had a long sleep and had not eaten for a long time. Their chests were already sticking to their back. Moreover, they had fought such a fierce battle just now and used up so much energy. Who could still get up now? Roar! Diunzi could not get up anyway. He lay on the ground and looked at Xiao Qishi. His gaze said, "Do whatever you want. I can't get up anyway." Qingfeng and Blue Frost were the same. The 2 brothers lay motionless like dead lions. They lay on the ground and refused to get up. Although Xiao Qishi was depressed, what else could she do? Forget it, forget it. Since their bodies were overloaded, they would just lie down. In the end, the 2 yellow lions and 1 white lions also stayed to watch over them. At this time, the lionesses in the pride quietly got up and went out to hunt. The new lions stayed in the territory, which meant that they had temporarily taken over the territory. The next step was to slowly get familiar with the lionesses. If both parties reached an agreement, they could have a lion cub. The unborn lionesses did not seem to be in a hurry to get in touch with Yelishanda. They had hunted food from nearby and planned to use it to express their goodwill to the powerful lion alliance. It was worth it to have so many lions guarding the pride. Smelling the smell of blood, all the lions looked at the prey that the lionesses had brought back, including the 2 injured lions. Usually, this was the time for them to enjoy a good meal. However, the lionesses' actions seemed to mean that they had lost the right to continue guarding the pride. They swallowed their saliva and were very thirsty for food. If they did not eat the food brought by the lionesses, they might starve to death. One of the injured lions seemed to have finally thought it through. He struggled to stand up and walk towards the food. His buttocks were injured. He had been cut by his opponent's fangs and had lost a lot of blood. He could only limp when he walked. This lion's journey was painful and careful. He should know that he would become a ghost under the claws of the nearby lions at any time, but he could not suppress his survival instincts. Even if he knew that this would speed up his death, he did not choose to wait for death quietly. He came to the side of the prey, followed by his brothers. The two lions wolfed down the fresh meat. As long as there was enough food and enough time to recuperate, it seemed that there was no hope of survival. The female lions watched indifferently. Perhaps they were puzzled. Why would those strong lions allow the injured lions to eat? Shouldn't they be chased away? Lions with brutal natures would even kill their defeated opponents directly. However, they did not chase away the dying lion brothers. It could be considered a more benevolent act. Most female lions had a very plastic relationship with lions. They were in a relationship where they used each other. They rarely provided for injured lions. When the three lying on the ground brothers saw the other lions eating, they could not help but lick their mouths to prevent saliva from flowing out of their open mouth. Big Yuanzi seemed to be restless and wanted to take a share of the soup, but in the end, he only looked back at Xiao Qishi eagerly. His big round eyes were hungry in his left eye and rice in his right eye. After resting for a while, Ao Daisai and Purple Lightning stood up almost at the same time. However, it was not the sign of bloodshed that people were worried about. They only walked slowly out of the territory. Roar! Xiao Qishi turned her head and called out softly. Where are you two going? Roar! Otis did not even turn his head around. He only let out a comforting growl. Xiao Qishi understood what he was trying to say. Be good and stay here. I will bring back some prey for you. It turned out that he saw that the other lions had food and he had no food, so he went hunting. It had to be said that Ao Daisai was so sweet. The departure of the two lions made the atmosphere even more confusing. However, the only thing that could be confirmed was that the Yalashanda lions were not interested in chasing away the two injured lions, nor did they snatch the food. The words pride and bottom line appeared in people's impression of them. After the two injured lions ate their fill, they instinctively retreated to a safer position. No one cared about the remaining food. Xiao Qishi, of course not. If you eat their prey, you will become their son-in-law. Although he coveted this lioness of the pride as his daughter-in-law, the children were still young. They still had more than half a year to reach adulthood. It was useless even if they invaded the pride. The lionesses would turn hostile if they were not satisfied. It was better to wait first. Xiao Qishi's abacus was very good. He felt that the lionesses would definitely not let these two lions with poor results be the children's fathers. Then, the two litters of cubs that had been born now would be almost grown up when the four brothers reached adulthood. At that time, he would raise them for 2 years. It was not like he had not been a father before. Wasn't it just 2 litters of cubs? He and Ao Daisai could do it. Speaking of Ao Daisai arrived. On the grassy slope in the distance, 2 strong lions dragging a wildebeest appeared, breaking the strange atmosphere between the two prides. It was always happy to eat. The 3 brothers, who were lying on the ground and unwilling to get up, immediately got up when they smelled the food. They even left Yalashanda behind. Xiao Qishi, the 3 of you can't walk? Is it fake? He lay down on the grass and thought in his heart, as long as this little bear does not go over, my boyfriend will definitely drag the prey over. Don't even think about eating it. Don't even think about it. The 3 brothers huffed and puffed as they surrounded the prey with their mouths full of saliva, wanting to eat on the spot. However, the fierce and domineering doe made an unfriendly sound from its throat and even scratched Big Yuanzi, who was secretly eating with its claws. Although the lions were anxious to eat, they could only follow behind resentfully. Ao Daisai dragged the wildebeest in front of Little Bear. Today, it was a type of prey that Little Bear did not like to eat, but this was the nearest prey nearby. Xiao Qishi laughed foolishly in his heart. He circled around Ao Daisai and Purple Lightning to express his gratitude before lying down to eat. The 6 lions happily ate the prey they had hunted and disdained the leftover prey of the other lions. The lioness's pupils slowly dilated, and their little expressions seemed to say, "Oh my, I saw lions hunting? Is there such a thing on the grassland?" The photographers could not tell what they were feeling, but the smiles on their faces never stopped. They felt that the scene in front of them was very interesting. Such an interesting thing had never happened on the grassland. The lions, who had never been good at hunting, had won back in front of the lionesses. The Norman brothers, who could both fight and hunt, seemed to be saying, "We are better at fighting than you, and our hunting skills are also better than yours. If you want to pursue us, go wash up and sleep." Of course, the lions did not have such a mentality. They were just underage and did not know how good the lionesses were. Time passed little by little, and the lionesses were also hungry, especially the lionesses with cubs. They needed to ensure that there was enough food to feed the cubs. The food left by the 2 lions was a temptation. In the end, the lionesses took the risk to come and eat. They were not attacked. In fact, the 6 lions left after eating a full meal. They even left some food that they were picky about. The members of the pride with many lions did not mind eating. In the following days, Xiao Qishi did not deliberately help the 2 injured lions. However, they helped the pride next door block several waves of invading lions, indirectly protecting each other. The 2 prides did not want to raise 2 lions that did not work. Gradually, the lionesses turned hostile, and the number of times they quarreled increased. Sometimes they quarreled so much that the lions next door could not sleep well. The Norman brothers, "The world of you adult lions is so complicated. Why do you have to talk when you can fight?" This morning, the camera caught Yelashanda and White Lion hugging each other and sleeping intimately. The scene was so gay that one could not bear to look at it. However, it did not make people feel disgusted. Instead, it made people feel that they were smiling like ants. Such a sincere and pure relationship was really good. Was it true love between lions? The relationship between Yelashanda and Baishur could no longer be described as a single type of relationship. They were both raising and being raised. When Baishur was still a blank piece of paper, Yelashanda had given him a second life and survival skills. The same was true for Ao Daisai to Little Bear. At the same time, they were also allies who had gone through thick and thin together. Ao Daisai, who was woken up by the quarrel, propped up his head and stared in the direction of the noise. His sleepy blue eyes were filled with displeasure. It looked like he even wanted to be the director of the sub-district office to clear things up. However, the method might be more violent. Xiao Qishi noticed that her boyfriend's ears were twitching and knew that he was in a bad mood. This habit was the same as when Do was young. A polar bear's ears could not vibrate, but a lion's ears were a lion's second language. According to this logic, lions could use their ears to converse? Realizing this cute conclusion, Alisanda bit the ear that was tempting him like a cat teaser. He was hungry. He wanted to eat the zebra. Ringed seal and zebra. Our ban has offended you. Ao Daisai licked Yelashanda, who was leaning her head in his arms, as if thinking about which direction there was a zebra. More than 2 hours later, Yelashanda's family was preparing to eat. The quarrel next door had already come to an end. The 2 lions were finally chased out of the territory by the lionesses. Food was not easy during the dry season. They were going out to live independently. The 2 injured lions, who were preparing to embark on a new journey, swayed and sneaked to the territory of the group of bachelors next door. Oh, everyone was eating. Yelashanda's family? Is it because we are not strong enough, or do we have the face of a philanthropist? There were actually shameless crippled lions who dared to come over and freeload. It was ridiculous. These 2 injured lions were probably desperate. In their current situation, it was impossible for them to hunt on their own. If they left the pride, they would only be waiting for death. Perhaps they felt that this alliance, which had helped them several times, would accept them and make them their allies. Big brother, second brother, third brother, fourth brother, and fifth brother. Ugly dream on. However, they had no intention of attacking these two lions. They seemed to disdain attacking the old, weak, and disabled. Usually, when a zebra could not finish eating, Diunzi would take the rest of the food. He would eat a little every once in a while and slowly finish it. This time, after they finished eating, the two injured lions risked their lives to pick up the leftovers. Although Diunzi was unhappy, he did not get angry because they were not competitors with these two lions from the beginning. They had never opposed each other. Furthermore, the other party was injured. The lions, who had been raised by Yelishanda, might have thought of their brothers when they were injured and felt sympathetic. Their kindness to the other injured lions was even more shocking than them helping the pride next door to retreat. After the video of the foreign lion coming to the territory of the 6 lions to eat was updated, it shocked some people. Yelishanda's pride was really an unquestionable legend of the grassland. People were looking forward to them making more precedent. The photographers found it funny that from today onwards, the 2 lions were actually shamelessly clinging to Yelishanda's family. The problem was that the 6 lions did not chase them away. They seemed to have tacitly allowed them to eat their leftovers. Xiao Qishi, we will chase them away, we will chase them away when they recover. After all, he is my daughter-in-law's ex-husband. Furthermore, the lion's virtue is not bad. After his injuries recover, he will be a good man again. The author has something to say. W looking for nutrient solution, I will add 22 coins tomorrow to play with the lion cub. Chapter 65. Even the lions with outstanding abilities such as Xiao Qishi's pride could not eat luxurious meals every meal. Sometimes, the prey brought back by the pride would inevitably be smaller, such as water antelopes with lighter body odors and male wild deer that could barely fill the 6 lions' stomachs. If there was no food left, the 2 lions would not be able to eat. Fortunately, thanks to Xiao Qishi's love for zebras, Ao Daisai, who doted on him for at least 5 days a week, would try his best to find zebras for the picky little bear to eat. This caused the number of zebras living in this territory to decrease at a visible rate. After the seal killer, Ao Daisai became a veritable zebra killer, and his conscience did not hurt. Xiao Qishi said that it was not entirely his fault. Ao Daisai also liked the taste of zebras. In fact, after comparing antelope meat with zebra meat, he did not eat antelope meat anymore. He even said that Ao Daisai was a picky eater. When he had the means, he was also a picky eater. Although the taste of antelope was really a little smelly. Since he was the one who made the decision not to chase away the wounded who picked up the leftovers, Little Bear also became a member of the glorious hunting team. However, because Ao Daisai and Purple Lightning were too strong, he rarely became the hunting vanguard. His daily job was to do odd jobs and chase away the flies and mosquitoes on the food. Yes, he was not even needed to chase away the prey. Overall, Yelishanda was so bored that he scratched his feet. 2 weeks later, the 2 lions with stronger self-healing abilities returned to their normal walking state. Every time Yelishanda's family went out to hunt, they would follow from afar. They seemed to be quite good-tempered. As mentioned before, there were good lions and bad lions on the grassland. These 2 should be good lions. As for combat strength, to be accepted by such a valiant pride proved that they were not bad. They could only blame the number of opponents for not being able to win. Xiao Qishi watched as their injuries healed day by day. She was quite happy because these 2 lions were still young and could continue to the next pride. As for the 2 litters of cubs they left behind in the pride next door, if nothing unexpected happened, they should grow up healthily under the careful care of the lionesses. After eating a luxurious meal in the wild today, it was already very late. The temperature on the grassland had dropped, and the fog had also fallen. It was quite comfortable. A few yellow cats that were full lay around, occasionally swinging their tails lazily to chase away the mosquitoes that annoyed them. At this moment, the two lions that were picking up leftovers were quietly eating, enjoying today's meal. After eating, they also consciously took on the role of patrolling and warning. This was the instinct of lions. Xiao Qishi knew that Big Yuanzi and the rest liked to snore when they slept. Hence, she always slept further away from Otis. Although Otis would snore sometimes, how could her boyfriend's snore be the same as his son's? Listening to her boyfriend's snore was enjoyment, but listening to her son's snore was suicide. Tonight they slept behind a small slope. Xiao Qishi snickered. Even though he had become a lion on the grassland, Ao Daisai still maintained some of the habits of a polar bear. He loved to sleep in a blind spot. Of course, there was nothing wrong with this. He could sleep peacefully. Tonight, the estrus phenomenon that appeared every few days troubled Xiao Qishi, who usually slept in seconds. After lying down, he felt that he could not fall asleep after tossing and turning, so he used his claws to kick Ao Daisai. Ever since Ao Daisai's injuries healed, Ao Daisai had been the one to help. Anyway, Ao Daisai was very willing. He was even not used to the physiological characteristics of becoming a lion. What could he do in 10 seconds? Ao Daisai often waited to see if the little lipstick would appear again. Xiao Qishi, who was stared at and waited, had complicated feelings. What AF * king feeling? But he could really wait. If he waited, Ao Daisai would be very happy and would be sick of his face like a child. Or, why did an adult lion have to go into estrus at any time? While Xiao Qishi was blindly pondering, Ao Daisai fell into a comfortable light sleep. His thin abdomen was slowly rising and falling, but he soon smelled the scent of the little bear in estrus. He opened his eyes that seemed to contain the sea of stars. Ao Daisai yawned. His arms hooked around Xiao Qishi's head and pulled it closer to him. The two lion heads rubbed against each other to their heart's content for a moment. This was one of the ways that Ao Daisai, who was full of emotions, expressed his love. First, he used body language to say that he loved him. Then, he touched his body and did shameful things. Right? Why? Yelishanda's brain turned, trying to analyze the self-question just now. In the end, he quickly stiffened and ended it hastily. Knock. Since it was already over, what was there to think about? There was really nothing to say about these few seconds. His body had not yet reached adulthood, but his soul could already be said to be an experienced Ao Daisai. The little bear's claws rested on his strong shoulders. He was originally engrossed in licking, but suddenly, there was nothing left to lick. He paused. It seemed that he also wanted to wait and see today, but Yelishanda was sleepy and slept in his arms. Yelishanda, aha, you didn't expect it, right? I'm asleep. I'm pretending. But he did not think about how easy it was for Ao Daisai to tell whether he was asleep or not. He could not pretend at all. Under Ao Daisai's gentle licking, Yelishanda listened to the music of nature while listening to Ao Daisai's breathing that made him feel at ease. He slowly fell asleep. Originally, there were 2 lions here before they fell asleep. When they woke up in the morning, there were actually 1, 2, 3, 4 lying around. Knock. It was inconvenient to fall in love with a child. They could not even secretly sleep with their partner. During the day, the lions lay down wherever the sun shone. They lay down wherever there was shade. If there was nowhere, they would hang on the tree. They lay down until noon. Yes, they were that lazy. The lions walked slowly, panting as they walked towards the water. It was too hot and too thirsty. By the river, which was so dry that there was only 1/3 of the original water source, a white rhinoceros that had marked this place as its territory was angrily chasing away the animals that came to drink water. The herbivores and cheetahs were chased by the white rhinoceros and did not dare to move forward. Thus, the white rhinoceros occupied the river bank alone. but soon it realized that there were ignorant fellows coming to test it. Thus, it blew out a breath from its nose, preparing to teach these fellows a lesson. However, the white rhinoceros soon realized that there were 8 lions coming. The combined strength could bring some trouble to it, so it put away its bad temper and temporarily gave up its territory. 6 lions were in a row upstream, lowering their heads to drink water. 2 lions were downstream. The photographer took this rare and meaningful photo. Not long after, the 2 lions that had recovered from their injuries left. This photo became the only remaining memory of the 2 groups of lions. When the brothers left, it was early in the morning. Before they left, they dragged a prey back and then really left. After the 6 lions woke up, they had a full meal. The 2 lions had eaten so much of their food, but they only returned 1. It was really a loss. Of course, only Yelishanda would think so because he knew how to count. Yelishanda, who had eaten his fill, stood on a small hill and looked into the distance. His heart was filled with blessings for the lion brothers. Go, go, we will take good care of your ex-wives and children. After the Melissa lions lost the lion guard, the pride worked together to raise the 2 litters of cubs left behind by the lion. A litter of 6 and a litter of 4. They were already more than 2 months old. They were at the age where they were furry and cute. The 10 spotted furballs could eat some of the meat that the lionesses chewed while drinking milk, so they were especially sturdy. They would jump behind their mother when she was hunting. The younger subadult lionesses in the pride took on the responsibility of taking care of these little furballs. The elder sister would be gentler than the elder brother. If it was the elder brother, it was possible that he would not control his strength. It was common for him to be careless when playing or deliberately hurt the little lion. The subadult lionesses, who were more than 2 years old, would learn to hunt from their mothers and aunts. They were already half warriors who could help. As the lionesses had a longer lifespan, the lionesses in a pride might have 3 generations. That evening, while hunting in the wild, the 2 prides that were not unfamiliar met by accident. Generally speaking, a pride of lionesses with cubs would deliberately avoid the male lion, but they were clearly not that wary of their neighbors. After fighting side by side a few times, and the fact that the lionesses might have taken a fancy to Yelishanda, they had some illusions about this group of lions. The 2 prides looked at each other for a moment from a safe distance. If the lion was interested, he would take the initiative to express his goodwill. Xiao Qishi did not want to go at first. Ao Daisai was watching him very closely and would break his leg whenever he took a step. However, he saw a group of cubs. There were a lot of them. They were jumping around and were shocked by the things around them like kittens. They could even play with a small insect with relish. When Xiao Qishi first picked up the 5 brothers, they were no longer little furry buns with little flowers growing all over their bodies. Now that he saw them so small, his heart melted. They were so adorable, a bunch of little fellows who had yet to meet their father. The newborn cubs would be hidden by the lionesses. They would only come out to come into contact with their father and the other lions when they could run and jump. However, this group of cubs no longer had a father. So pitiful. Yelishanda, who was willing to be the father of all the cubs in the world, took the risk of having his leg broken by Ao Daisai and sneaked towards the pride of lionesses. Ao Daisai had just left him to go hunting with his brothers. Little Bear Joe was also a member of the team, but he snorted and lay on the ground to show that he could blatantly slack off because he was not well. Of course, Ao Daisai would not force him to work, and the other lions would not either. Everyone was used to his sneaky daily operations. Yelishanda lay on the ground and scratched his feet for a while before getting up to do something bad. The strong lionesses who were left to watch over the children noticed a handsome lion approaching. It was the one they liked, so the 2 of them lay on the ground and waited, preparing to come into contact with this lion. Xiao Qishi walked around the 2 enchanting lionesses and slowly walked towards the cubs. This action unsurprisingly aroused the vigilance of the lionesses. They turned their heads and stared at Xiao Qishi's every move. The sisters of the cubs also consciously took the cubs away. On the surface, it seemed peaceful, but there was a turbulent undercurrent. The photographer also broke out in cold sweat. His heart seemed to be in his throat. They were afraid that Yelishanda would harm the cubs, but he did not. Yelishanda just lay down near the cubs and used various actions, such as flipping his stomach and rolling on the grass to attract the attention of the cubs. At first, more than 10 pairs of round and innocent eyes looked at the adult lion that had suddenly appeared in fear and uneasiness. But soon the cubs, who had never seen a lion before, actually stretched out their little claws and walked towards the lion, perhaps because they were born to yearn for a strong father. Yelishanda, who was strictly guarded by many gazes, did not dare to act rashly. At first, he only moved his tail to tease the cubs, making the atmosphere relax again and again, making the lionesses believe that he was harmless and trustworthy. The cubs, who had never been accompanied by their father, were full of interest in this big fellow with an unfamiliar smell. At first, they were timid and only dared to squat at the side and watch the other party's tail sweep around. After they slowly relaxed, they dared to pounce on Xiao Qishi and treat his tail as a toy. This harmonious scene made the photographer heave a sigh of relief. It also made the lionesses, who were on tenterhooks, heave a sigh of relief. If it were not for the fact that they had no choice, they did not want to have a conflict with the lion. However, they might not understand that there was a lion that could accept children who were not his own. Yelishanda thought to himself, "You're underestimating me. My dream is to give all the cubs in the world a home." The cubs, who lacked their father's love, were treated with gentleness by Yelishanda. Their vigilance towards danger gradually disappeared, leaving only curiosity and playfulness. The furry little bodies were warm and the fur on their bodies was soft. They were fragile and full of vitality. Yelishanda's heart was about to melt. He leaned over and licked one of the cubs that was very close to him with a gentle gaze. The other party was not afraid of him at all. The existence of the cubs was ridiculous. They were too cute. Their stomachs were round and their expressions were so innocent and lively. Yelishanda, who had transformed into a fool, even secretly licked the pads of the cub's paws. It was still soft to the touch, unlike his pads, which were not soft anymore. Even he did not like to lick them usually. Only Ao Daisai did not dislike his paws. Under the camera, some of the cubs were using their baby teeth to bite Yelishanda's tail. Although it was not painful, the lions with limited patience could not stand this kind of harassment. They would roar at the cubs fiercely or find another place to rest. The good-tempered Yelishanda even allowed the cubs to climb and jump around on his strong body. He did not blame the cubs for their offense at all. Yelishanda, who was seriously taking care of the cubs, looked like a loving and gentle father. The key was that these were not his children. Of course, this was not the first time he had done this kind of thing. He was a habitual offender. The photographers even felt that if the lionesses of Melissa's pride were willing to let Yelishanda raise these cubs, Yelishanda would jump for joy. Yelishanda, yes. The time spent stroking the cubs was happy. Yelishanda's paws and mouth were very busy. He was also very busy stuffing the cubs' heads. He even forgot about the time to go back. That was until a familiar lion's roar came from afar. It contained an anxious call and anger, as if it was searching for something and deterring the possible dangers around it. The voice was very familiar. It seemed to be Ao Daisai. When he heard Ao Daisai's voice, Yelishanda, who was stroking the cubs until he was delirious, finally realized the seriousness of the matter. He immediately got up, shook the cubs off his body, and ran away without saying a word. Ao Daisai, who had gone out to hunt, dragged back a huge prey with his brothers. He wanted to reward the little bear, who was not feeling well, but when he came back, he did not see the little bear lying on the ground. Not only that, Ao Daisai angrily found Yelishanda's scent in the nearby lioness's pride. The lionesses there were also in heat. The scent of the little bear and the scent of the lionesses in heat mixed together and drifted into Aodai's nose. It made him look very unhappy. He immediately abandoned the prey and rushed to the lioness's pride with a face full of blood. The white lion came with a menacing aura. His face was stained with blood and he even bared his fangs. Xiao Qishi was afraid that he would massacre the lionesses. But the key was that the cubs must not be implicated. Therefore, he ran away, deciding to sacrifice himself and bring the war far away. Aodai roared angrily at the lionesses. The lionesses did not dare to provoke him. They immediately left with the cubs. After hesitating for a second between the two directions, Aodai resolutely chose to chase after Xiao Qishi. It seemed that he could not bear to see the other party run away. In the depths of Aodai's memory, there was a memory like this. Although the process was different, it gave him the same feeling. The appearance of a third party made him even more unable to calm down. Xiao Qishi kept running, but he did not want to compete with Aodai to see who could run faster. Therefore, when he saw a tree, he jumped up and did not dare to confront Aodai on the ground. He was afraid that Aodai would be angry and beat him up. Roar! Aodai came to the bottom of the tree and paced back and forth. It seemed that his eyes were burning with anger. Otherwise, he would not have roared at Xiao Qishi. But more than that, he felt wronged and complained. It seemed that he did not accept Xiao Qishi's action of going deep into the lioness's pride. This made him very angry. Xiao Qishi, who was hiding in the tree, also talked back. What was going on? Aodai actually shouted at him so fiercely. The problem was that he didn't do anything wrong. He just forgot the time while playing with the little lion. Was that a mistake? If this is a mistake, please give him a chance to make a mistake every day. Roar! Xiao Qishi was just about to say that when Aodai roared at her. Stinky Aodai, how dare you be so fierce? Oh, he didn't cheat. He did not come into contact with the lionesses. He only touched the lion cub. Was this not enough? Then bite me to death. Bite me to death if you can. Yalashanda grabbed the tree trunk with his claws. His head was stuck between the tree branches as he howled and defended himself. In the end, he said some harsh words in one go. Aodai's expression was cold. He licked his lips, as if he didn't know how to face it. This was the effect that Xiao Qishi wanted. Seriously, he didn't listen to reason and insisted on making a scene. Looking at the fierce little bear, Aodai blinked and shut his mouth. Most of the anger in his body disappeared, but there was still a small part of it in his heart. Seeing that Aodai had backed down, Xiao Qishi knew that Aodai wouldn't hit him if he went down the tree now. However, he still stayed on the tree and licked his claws for a while. Since they had quarreled, he had to show his attitude. However, Yalashanda couldn't go overboard. After about 5 minutes, Yalashanda stumbled down from the tree. If not for the fact that he was hungry, Xiao Qishi felt that he should have stayed on the tree for another 5 minutes. The first thing Yalashanda did when he returned to the ground was to rub against Aodai. Oh, it's just a trivial matter, don't take it to heart. Aodai sniffed the little bear's scent carefully. Even if it was only the scent of a lion cub, he didn't mind using his saliva to lick the scent clean. Finally, he checked under his abdomen to make sure that there was only his own scent. Aodai's idea was simple. After confirming that the little bear didn't touch the lionesses, his anger instantly disappeared and he wouldn't suspect anything. The two lions who had quarreled quickly kissed and rubbed each other again. This was all thanks to Yalashanda, who knew how to give in and even lay on the ground to act coquettishly. Under the smiles of the photographers, they returned to the pride to enjoy their food. From that day onwards, Yalashanda and the lion cub's fate seemed to have come to an end. Because there weren't many opportunities for them to meet, and Aodai was watching them so closely that he even scared the lionesses that day. He probably already categorized them as stinky lions. Yelishanda wanted to play with the lion cubs so badly that he could only play with his little lion. Little Bear chased Big Brother and Second Brother around the territory. Aodisai didn't seem to mind. Of course, what he minded was the person being chased. Roar. What sin did he commit? It's such a hot day. Among so many lions, only Big Uenzi, who was also playful, and Second Brother, who couldn't bear to reject Xiao Qishi, were willing to accompany Xiao Qishi to go crazy. Of course, Aodisai was happy to accompany him, but Xiao Qishi didn't want to play with him every day. If he got tired of playing with him, he would play with something else. Speaking of which, this year's dry season was especially long. It was already December, but there was still no rain. Without the nourishment of rain, rich grass could not grow. Then what did herbivores rely on to survive? They could only endure hunger and thirst. In the end, because of their poor physical condition, they fell into the mouths of carnivores and became food. With the sudden decrease in prey, the lions' lives were also very difficult. Some prides no longer had any prey in their territories. They had no choice but to look at the territories of other prides. During this torturous period of waiting for rain, their already difficult lives became even more turbulent. Many prides that had previously lived well were crazily expanding their territories and snatching survival resources. The 6 lions chased away batches of wandering lions that came to take advantage of them. They were determined not to split the resources. After all, they had enough to live on. During this period of time, Melissa's pride had not welcomed a new male lion. There were many reasons, but the main reason was probably that they had not met a suitable opponent that was strong enough. Also, there were 10 cubs in the pride that they had to raise, so their territory was not empty. Describing the territory of Melissa's pride as a delicious cake was perfect. Not only were the wandering lions staring at this place, the neighboring alliances were also staring at this place. For example, the Northern Alliance, which had never stopped waging war, and the notorious 4 brothers of Old Salus came over when they smelled the scent of lionesses in heat. They even cleverly circled around the area where the 6 lions were resting and sneaked into the territory of Melissa's pride from afar. The moment the 2 dutiful lion mothers smelled the unfamiliar lion's scent, they immediately left with the cubs. The remaining lionesses dealt with the 4 lions that seemed to have bad tempers, hoping to buy time for the other group that was protecting the cubs. Experienced prides would do this. Living on the grasslands where danger lurked everywhere had taught them how to feign civility. In order to stop the male lions, a few female lions even came to the male lions and took the initiative to show their goodwill. However, these 4 brutal male lions did not seem to buy it. They were still angrily chasing after another group of lions. Seeing that they could not stop the lions, the lionesses were anxious. However, due to the great disparity in strength, they could not do anything to the 4 strong lions. When they ran in front, the lions even roared at them. This was a very rare phenomenon. The photographers were frightened and mourned for the lionesses. This was because the 4 lions had a record of killing lionesses and even eating each other. At that time, there was a lack of food during the dry season. It was very similar to now. Another group of lions that were covering the escape of the little lions discovered that the male lion was chasing after them. Their hearts should be filled with despair because the little lions ran too slowly. They would die here. Whoa! A few anxious lionesses picked up the slowest cubs and ran to their neighbor's territory as fast as they could. However, even if the lionesses each picked up a cub and escaped, there were still many cubs that were helplessly left behind. They let out childish cries in fear, as if calling for their mother's protection. Under the deterrence of the lion's roar, the cubs that had been helplessly abandoned panicked. Some of them rolled down the slope as they ran. Fortunately, it was not a bottomless abyss at the bottom of the slope, but a beast's mouth full of fangs. The cubs' chubby bodies fell into the beast's mouth and were gently picked up. After many days, Yelishanda finally touched the cubs again. However, now was not the time to suck furry. A few of them were escaping death. He put the cubs on the ground and rushed to pick up the other cubs. He had to do this job because the 5 brothers did not have any feelings for the cubs. Their eyes were already fixed on the 4 unfamiliar lions that had sneaked into their territory. Roar, roar. The roars of the 2 sides were on the verge of erupting. They roared fiercely from a short distance away, making the photographers who were following them feel deafened and unbearable. The few young lions fighting on their home ground kept walking forward, especially de Yuenzi. He was almost face to face with the other party. He was not afraid. As long as this bastard dared to scratch him, his brothers behind him would definitely swarm over. Therefore, his provocation was the loudest. The lion that was roaring at him was also very loud. Both sides were trying to use their powerful auras to suppress each other's auras. The reason why they did not start fighting the moment they met was because both sides knew that the other party was not weak. If they fought, no one might win. However, in their own territory, the 5 brothers naturally would not be afraid. They formed a formation to surround the 4 invading lions. If these lions obediently left their territory, they might be able to resolve the problem peacefully. Otherwise, they could only fight. After protecting the cubs at the back, the strong lionesses also joined the retreating army. They bared their teeth fearlessly and guarded against the 4 lions. At this time, another group of lionesses also caught up to them. The battle became 6 lions and 17 adult lionesses encircling the 4 lions. The cameramen had never expected such a sudden turn of events. Just now, they thought that a tragedy was about to happen, but the sudden turn of events left them stunned. Seriously speaking, the Northern Alliance was finished with this lineup. They had no chance of winning at all. If they did not choose to escape, they would be seriously injured even if they did not die. However, the lions fighting against them were not doing well either. The Yilashanda lions were not weak, but they lacked a lot of experience. Now was not the time to fight the 4 Saw brothers. The 4 lions of the Northern Alliance seemed to know the result of a head-on clash with the 6 lions they did not expect. They roared at their opponents for a while. He made a prompt decision to turn around and run. The author has something to say. I've finally logged in. I've been trying to verify my password. Chapter 66. The ancestors said that one should not chase after a cornered enemy. If it was an ordinary opponent, it would be fine if they escaped. It was not like they had a deep grudge. However, these lions did have a blood feud with the 6 Lions Alliance. However, Xiao Qishi knew some of it and he did not know some of it. Even so, when he recognized that the scent of 2 of the lions was the revenge of the killing group that he had been painstakingly searching for, his fists immediately hardened and he burned with anger. Yilashanda and the 5 brothers chased after them aggressively, cursing in their hearts. These 2 trash lions actually had companions and they did not look weak. Their chances of winning were not high. However, they had to chase after them even if they could not defeat them for the time being. They had to see where the other party's nest was and take his life when he was sick one day. Ao Daisai seemed to have recognized the scent of the 2 enemies. From the moment he confronted the other party, his sharp blue eyes stared fixedly at the other party. When he ran, the scar on his abdomen that had yet to fade tightened. Although he did not roar continuously like Big Yuenzi, continuously demonstrate his power and use his aura to suppress the other party, the male lion that he was staring at was also afraid and did not dare to hesitate in the slightest as it fled into the distance. Roar, the lions, who had chased the 4 invaders far away from their territory, wandered on a slope and roared in protest. They did not leave for a long time. Yilashanda, who was standing high and looking into the distance, stared at the backs of the trash lions. Alright, so the other party's hometown was in that direction. He remembered it. Chasing away the invaders came to an end. Xiaoqishi, let's call it a day. Yilashanda, who was a fan of furry animals, was still thinking about the cubs in his territory. Hence, he roared twice in the direction where he could no longer see their back. He was the first to turn around and run back. His small steps were happy and excited. Aodisei had been looking in the direction of his enemy. Now that the little bear had run away, he blinked and turned around to follow without hesitation. The white lion, who was jogging, was a little nervous. Photographer, Baisher is already so big, but he's still so clingy. Xiao Qixu's eyes widened when she realized that Aodisei was following them. Logically speaking, shouldn't Aodisei stay with Big Yuanzi and the others for a while? Seriously, did she not trust him? At this time, the lionesses and cubs of Melissa's pride were still in their neighbor's territory, waiting for news from the lions. Soon, they saw 2 lions return, which meant that the 4 invaders had left. The leader of Melissa's pride was called Lena. She took the initiative to approach Yelishanda as though she wanted to interact with Yelishanda. It was likely that in leader Lena's eyes, Yelishanda was also the leader of this pride of lions. Lionesses needed male lions to protect them, and Lena liked these strong and chivalrous male lions. Although she no longer needed to give birth to cubs, there were still many young lionesses in the pride she led. Some of them had not even grown up yet. Lena's initiative to show her goodwill made the photographers happy. This was a scene full of pink bubbles. It seemed that the 2 prides were about to live together. Yelishanda, yes, yes, yes. If the 2 prides merged, he would wag his tail in agreement. However, things did not go smoothly. Aodisei, who had been watching Little Bear very closely, suddenly came from behind and inserted his body between the 2, instantly blocking the gazes of the lionesses that were filled with greed. At the same time, he made a terrifying warning sound in his throat, as if reminding them that it was time for them to return home. In the photographer's eyes, this was a sign that the white lion was still underage and did not understand romance. Only Yelishanda knew that Aodisei was jealous. He facepalmed. It was so awkward because this lion was already old. He was old. This was ridiculous. Aodisei was jealous of no one. Lena realized that the subadult lion was not cooperating, so she did not force him. She was a brave and experienced middle-aged lioness. After being rejected, she just stretched on the spot and called for her companions to go home. After a short communication, the lions did not merge. Xiao Qixu's heart was bleeding as he watched the lionesses take the cubs away. He decided to resist a little and bypass the overbearing and petty Aodisei to send the lagging cubs off. Aodisei's face was cold. He seemed to have decided to lick his claws to ease the awkwardness of not being able to cure the little bear. Yelishanda held the flag of sending him off and played with the cubs as he walked. He even lay down a few times. The cubs that had been seduced by him jumped around his body and loved his ears and tail. The cubs had to be summoned by the lionesses every time before they could run and jump back to catch up with the team. Xiao Qixu was satisfied after sending him to the edge of the territory with ulterior motives. He even wanted to lie down and roll around twice. Roar, the cubs were so cute. However, the old baby at home was also very cute. Xiao Haiwang Little Bear jumped home happily. Yo, I'm here. Xiao Qixu pounced on the white lion that was squatting on the ground and tidying its fur. Aodisei reacted very quickly and immediately counterattacked the little bear, not giving the other party a chance to take advantage of him. Not only that, he even put on a fierce look and pretended to bite the little bear's neck. Roar! Xiao Qixu widened his eyes, as if he could not believe that he had lost just like that. Could it be that, after so many years of improvement, he was still a lion? He was not convinced. Little Bear and his boyfriend Aodisei rolled on the ground and fought fiercely. However, upon closer inspection, one would realize that they were just pretending to open their fangs and could not bear to bite. Especially the white lion, who looked fierce and ruthless on the surface. He clearly had a chance to make Yelishanda suffer every time, but he picked it up high and put it down gently. His awe-inspiring and gentle appearance made people suspicious. Was this love? Cameraman, We feel like we're watching two cats fight. They've waved their claws thousands of times, but it's useless. Boss and the others came back and saw Qiao Qishi and Do fighting. They were stunned for a few seconds. Why are they fighting? Big Yuanzi, you guys stay here and don't move. I'll go and mediate. The consequence of letting Big Yuanzi mediate was that there was a terrible scuffle within the Six Lions Alliance. A week later, Qiao Qishi still could not understand. She was such a good lion. Why would a good lion like her suffer a few ambushes in the battle that day? Even now, his ribs were still aching faintly. Damn it! Who did it? However, compared to him, Ao Daisai was in a worse state. He was almost surrounded by his brothers and in the end, Little Bear had to rescue him. Little Bear, case solved. Ao Daisai was injured. The lions spent a week in dejection. The first rain of the dry season finally fell. They stayed in the rain happily and occasionally raised their heads to shake off the water on their manes. Some even raised their heads to drink the rain. The cameraman took pictures of this wild scene and felt a little emotional. Many lion prides suffered heavy losses during this dry season and even fell apart. However, this pride took care of itself and the pride next door. After the two prides worked together to defeat the enemy, these two territories that belonged to the two prides were no longer seriously harassed. The adult lions of the two prides safely survived the rainy season with plenty of food. As Yelishanda was always thinking about the cubs in the pride next door, he occasionally found a suitable opportunity and would secretly go next door to see the cubs with a leg or a piece of rib in his mouth. He had hunted this food himself. Boom! In the territory, Ao Daisai ate the prey that Little Bear had brought back with sleepy eyes. However, this prey was a little strange and was missing a thigh. Of course, because this thigh was hidden in the grass nearby by Qiao Qishi, he planned to eat with everyone for a while before sneaking away. The reason he slipped away every time was that he was going out to relieve himself. It was commonly known as poop escape. However, Ao Daisai would suspect it if it happened too many times. For example, this time, Little Bear had not left yet. He licked his lips and looked in the direction where Little Bear had hidden the food. The smell of blood was so strong. Did he think his nose was a decoration? However, Ao Daisai did not seem to have any intention of exposing Little Bear. He just looked at Little Bear with a smile, lowered his head, and bit a rib. Qiao Qishi. It was nothing. His body was just trembling a little, because he was frightened by Ao Daisai. This time, Yelishanda did not have a sh*T shield. He obediently finished the food with everyone and waited for the next opportunity. Big Yuanzi, who often ate a little more than everyone else, seemed to lick his fangs after eating. He did not know if it was an illusion, but he felt that today's portion was a little small. Of course, the prey that was originally just enough for everyone was missing a thigh. This portion was almost the same as the supper that was dug out from his mouth. Suddenly, Big Yuanzi's nose twitched. He got up and walked towards the place where Yelishanda had hidden the meat. Qiao Qishi immediately exploded. Ah, don't move. In order to protect the rations left for the little lions, Yelishanda pushed Big Yuanzi down and beat the confused and wronged Big Yuanzi back. Then, he did not care so much. He howled a few times to indicate that he wanted to go to the toilet and ran away. Ao Daisai lazily lay on a dry rock. With a penetrating gaze, he narrowed his eyes and looked in the direction where the little bear left. Perhaps he had always known what Qiao Qishi was going to do, but he did not stop her. This attitude seemed to indicate that as long as the little bear did not have the smell of the lionesses on him when he returned, Ao Daisai was willing to turn a blind eye. Gradually, perhaps Ao Daisai also knew that Yelishanda was just playful and liked to play with the little lion. As for the lion next door who always came to see the little lions with food in his mouth, the lionesses of the Melissa Lion's pride also turned a blind eye to it, just like Ao Daisai. Otherwise, in the face of such a special and likable lion, what else could they do? The little lions grew up visibly, and a few more mature lionesses were added to the pride. They urgently needed lions to breed offspring. Recently, it was not that there were no handsome and strong lions who came to contact them and tried to join their pride, but the lionesses of the Melissa Lion's pride did not have that intention. They seemed to be waiting for the lion next door to reach adulthood. If they accepted another lion, the relationship between the two prides would be broken. The smart and wise leader Lena would not let this happen. She would rather lead the pride to live a pure and simple life than accept another lion casually. Anyway, there were no other lionesses next door. This was true. One had to know that Yelishanda was already an adult, but he had not mated with a lioness yet. At first, people thought that White Lion did not allow it. The domineering White Lion always destroyed the contact between Yelishanda and the lionesses. His relationship with Yelishanda was obvious. People, we know about your love, we know, but is it really a man to not let Yelishanda be a father? Even if the other lions on the grassland were gay, they would let their gay friends leave behind offspring. Could it be that our Yelishanda is not worthy? Later on, they were dumbstruck when they realized that even if Yelishanda had the chance to interact with the lionesses, he did not seem to have that kind of thought. Yelishanda did not bring food to visit the lion next door for the lionesses. He was obviously there to play with the little lions. Yelishanda often played with the little lions and rolled around on the ground. It was written all over his body that he wanted to raise little lions. He really wanted to. Yelishanda's true thoughts. That's right. He had even secretly fantasized that Aodisei would give birth to little lions. It could be said that he was extremely daring, That was why it was said that a mature lion who did not like lionesses and a group of mature lionesses who rejected other lions would work together to protect the little lions. It was truly amazing and unimaginable. Some people guessed that the lionesses of the Melissa Lion's pride were waiting for the 5 Norman brothers to grow up. If that was true, then their leader Lena had really made a choice that required courage and boldness. Her courage was admirable. In the end, it was proven that their wait was worth it. After that, the year passed rather well. The half-grown lads grew into calm and steady youth. The half-grown young lady next door also grew into a slender and elegant young lady. The mature Norman brothers were tall and strong. The color of their manes seemed to have deepened this year. They were luxuriously draped over their backs, looking awe-inspiring. Their handsome and mighty looks, as well as the masculine aura emitted from their bodies, caused the hearts of the lionesses next door to ripple. They looked forward to interacting with them. Recently, when they met in the wild, the 4 yellow lions had a much better attitude towards them. However, the White Lion and the other one who had already matured did not approach them like before. The mature male lion seemed to be more interested in the little lions. He only liked to help them raise the little lions and did not want to have little lions with them. The White Lion was extremely cold and was not very fierce to them. After all, when they were retreating, he was very brave and had protected their pride countless times. Sometimes he would even accompany the big lion and watch it raise the little lion. He did not mind the little lions touching his beard when he was sleeping. Joe Little Bear, look at the blackboard. Read it loudly with me. Love House Crow. That evening, the breeze blew gently and the weather was very comfortable. Groups of herbivores gathered around the swamp. They lowered their heads leisurely to eat the tender green grass. And on this tranquil wetland, a fierce battle had just taken place. The birds on the grassland flew past at a low altitude, also looking for food in this swamp. The remains of the lions after a full meal were a good choice for them. The lions who were the first to eat their fill touched each other on the grass, leaving only the lionesses with their cubs and the little cubs still eating. On the Yelishanda Pride side, the 2 male lions were still eating. They were not looking for a partner, and they were not dating. If they were not eating, what were they going to do? The water buffalo's crispy bones were delicious too. The couple crunched on them as they watched the young people fall in love. Today was the third time they had come into contact recently. They should be able to match, right? After the two prides came into contact, they could not be matched immediately because both sides had a large number of lions. Other than the problem of matching, there was also the problem of mating rights. Of course, the four brothers would not fight because of this. They would coordinate it themselves. When the four polite handsome lions were favored by the lionesses, if they liked them too, they would respond. If they did not like them, they would not respond. However, they were all gentlemen and would usually accept good intentions. Among them, the enthusiastic and proactive Big Yuanzi was the best. Although he was very fierce on the battlefield, he was actually very gentle to the opposite sex. The second was Qingfeng. His elegant and steady personality was very popular with the older ladies. Almost half of the older ladies liked him and gathered in front of him. Some of the female lions who had just reached adulthood took a fancy to Qing Shuang, and some took a fancy to Purple Lightning. It was as if Purple Lightning was pulled over to make up the numbers and was not used to the kindness of the opposite sex. Purple Lightning did not have much physical contact with his brothers since he was young. This was his unique personality. However, later on, Xiao Qixi always pounced on him and bit him with bad intentions, which mostly cured his problem. After a period of mutual selection, the mating rights between the brothers seemed to be decided just like that. There was no rule about who had more or less. They would not be jealous of each other either. The few old female lions and the two female lions with cubs who no longer needed to breed seemed to be looking forward to life after the two prides merged. As for the two lions who did not participate in the mating rights, they seemed to be used to it. After the sky darkened, the lions each brought their wives and walked towards the bushes in western Zhou. Soon, it seemed that a new cub would be born in their incomparably huge pride. Xiao Qixi was very gratified and even wanted to cry. She recalled the days when she first came to the grassland. It was really not easy. Woo woo woo. He burped as he cried. Because no one ate today's food, he accidentally ate too much. Then, he leaned against Ao Daisai's body and said, "Woo." Yalashanda finally understood why the parents of the bride and groom always cried every time she attended a wedding. It was because it was too difficult. The little bear suddenly cried. Ao Daisai was at a loss, but he quickly rubbed against the little bear hard and gently licked the little bear's tears. Clearly, he was comforting him. In order to make Xiao Qixi happy, Ao Daisai even let out long and short sounds like he did in the North Pole. It was extremely comical for a lion like him to do it. The tears that Xiao Qixi was about to cry were instantly broken. Annoying! Ao Daisai narrowed his eyes and cleaned up the little bear's messy face. Then, he looked at him quietly and licked his lips. "What are you doing? What are you doing?" Xiao Qixi's face turned red and his eyes darted around. However, Ao Daisai quickly moved his tail, as if he was acting coquettishly and urging him. The other brothers had all brought their spouses to the bushes because they were already adult. Of course, Ao Daisai had also stepped into adulthood and needed to be intimate with his spouse. A lion's estrus period was not more turbulent than a polar bear's estrus period. Ao Daisai probably just wanted to be intimate with his partner and had nothing to do with venting his desire. However, he did not want to force the little bear. If he did not get a response for a long time, he would give up. How could Xiao Qixi refuse? Cough cough. After being reserved for a moment, he agreed. Ao Daisai, who had received his agreement, looked very happy. He got up and walked in front, bringing the little bear to the high ground. Yalashanda, who was following behind, felt that something was wrong. This was not the route to the bushes. Of course not, because they were climbing a slope. Xiao Qixi's eyes widened. No way, no way. The location of the date had changed from a small snow slope to a small soil slope. It seemed like it. Even if Ao Daisai had changed from a polar bear to an African lion, it did not change his habit of having sex in high places. Looking at the small soil slope, Xiao Qishi complained in her heart. Why don't you climb a tree? The moonlight was beautiful tonight and the wind was comfortable. The white lion gently licked his cute partner, and then climbed onto his partner's crotch. Needless to say, the surroundings were bare and there were no extra gazes to disturb them. Although the male lion only weighed 600 to 700 kilograms, it was still quite difficult for him to support himself. The yellow lion seemed to have foresight. He found a big tree to support himself and then half-crouched down, similar to how a lioness welcomed a male lion. This allowed the white lion's slender and strong forearms to land on the ground. Naturally, the other party's weight would not be added to his body. Yelishanda expected that they would come up for a while and then go down quickly. However, he guessed wrong. Both of them were famous for being fast men on the grassland. Ao Daisai did not change his fate and was much stronger than him. At most, he was 5 to 6 times stronger. However, this was not worth bragging about because it was still very fast. But Sob, the other party's cooldown time was short. Sometimes, she did not feel that it was too much and it was fine again. This made Xiao Qishi's mood fluctuate. The white lion squinted his eyes happily. From time to time, he would gently bite the back of the yellow lion's neck. Occasionally, he would growl softly in his throat. It seemed that he liked this kind of intimacy very much. At the same time, in the bushes in the distance, the 4 lions of the alliance were also working hard to satisfy the lionesses so that they could conceive as soon as possible and give birth to cute little lions. The author has something to say. It has become a big alliance. =_= Thank you for the nutrient solution. I am satisfied. I can come again. Hee. Chapter 67. After spending half the night with Ao Daisai, who had just reached adulthood and was full of energy, Yelishanda lay in his arms, feeling a little exhausted. Her long legs rested on his shoulders shyly because Ao Daisai was cleaning up the mess of their intimacy. What he couldn't stand the most was that Ao Daisai kissed the base of his tail and then his handsome face. Get lost. Ao Daisai, who was satisfied, didn't mind Xiao Qishi's rough treatment. He narrowed his eyes and lay with her, enjoying the pleasure after the intimacy. Even the naturally irritable lions had times when they became gentle. Ao Daisai was like that, and so were the other lions raised by Xiao Qishi. Their brave and gentlemanly performances were recognized by the lionesses. The photographers were the most helpless tonight. In order to wait for the most important moment of the 2 prides, they had been working overtime since a few days ago. In the evening, at the edge of the wetland, it looked like it was about to be done. The lions actually led the lionesses in 4 directions. The 2 teams had no choice but to split into 4 teams to follow the 4 lions who had wives. As for White Lion and Yelishanda, who were still eating water buffaloes, no one had time to care about them for the time being. Scenes of them eating could be taken every day. At the important moment of the lions mating, White Lion and Yelishanda, who were usually the main characters, were ignored. It had to be said that Yelishanda's luck was really good. She and Ao Daisai were already like this and still no one found out. Photographer: no, that's just what you think. After being pressed down by Ao Daisai for half the night, Xiao Qishi was tired and sleepy. Soon, she fell asleep in Ao Daisai's arms. He was probably the only one in the entire grassland who could receive such treatment. After all, lions were not monogamous. Lions were all playboys. Even if they had a group of particularly enchanting wives, they would still think of the little lionesses of other prides. It was noon the next day. The lions who had spent the night with their partners were all sleeping soundly in the bushes. After a night of familiarity, they had a better understanding of each other. The female lions were the first to wake up. They stretched their bodies on the ground and yawned. Their furry faces still looked sleepy, but they could no longer be lazy. Because leader Lena was summoning them, they had to hurry out and hunt. The lionesses with their cubs had woken up a long time ago, and the lively cubs had been jumping around and playing all morning. Now, their stomachs were rumbling with hunger, and just drinking milk was not enough to fill their stomachs. Furthermore, this group of 7 to 8-month-old cubs were weaning. The mother lions used all kinds of methods to stop them from drinking milk, such as climbing to a high place to hide, or participating in the hunt. The merging of the two prides meant that the lionesses had to bear the responsibility of feeding the 6 male lions, so their task was very difficult. They had to hunt in batches to bring back food that satisfied the male lion. Otherwise, the male lions that could not fill their stomachs would find other lionesses to live with. In order to keep these 6 lions, leader Lena led the female lions to search for prey under the scorching sun in the afternoon. After the male lions that were left in the territory woke up, they found that almost all the female lions around them had left. Only 2 adult female lions were left to take care of the mischievous cubs. The 4 Norman brothers, who now took over the lioness's pride, had no intention of hurting the bloodlines left behind by the former Lion King. Of course, Xiao Qishi had sworn to take good care of the ex-wives and children of the 2 brothers. He would not let the 4 brothers be hostile to the cubs. The tradition of the 6 Lions Alliance had always been to hunt and feed themselves, so after they woke up, they prepared to go out and hunt as before. Ao Daisai rubbed against Xiao Qishi's head and used his strong body to block in front of him, as if to say, "I'm going to hunt. Wait here obediently for us to come back." Realizing that the children and daughters-in-law were all watching, Xiao Qishi felt embarrassed because he had a guilty conscience. However, he still rubbed against Ao Daisai a few times. Then, Ao Daisai led his brothers out. Xiao Qishi watched the backs of the 5 male lions for a long time. The lionesses were a little confused, and did not know what they were going to do. Xiao Qishi saw that they were confused. It was not easy to explain. In short, they would not be men who lived off women. Now that the pride had so many mouths, if the male lions did not work, how could they feed so many lions? They definitely had to work. They could not rely on the lionesses to feed their families. Not long after, the team led by leader Lena returned. They brought back a wildebeest. Although Xiao Qishi did not participate in the mating, none of the lionesses felt that Xiao Qishi should not enjoy the prey they brought back. The picky Lashanda looked at the wildebeest and thought, "Why don't you guys eat it? I'm still waiting for my boyfriend's zebra. It's delicious and slurping." Lena seemed to understand the thoughts of this male lion from looking at each other. Although she did not understand, she liked this male lion's generosity in letting them eat first. Hence, she tore open the meat of the prey and let the lionesses and cubs eat to their heart's content. Yalashanda watched the cubs eat with relish. Soon, they became disheveled. The lionesses tore off a piece of meat and threw it on the ground. It was immediately pulled into the mouths of the 2 cubs. Seeing this scene, Xiao Qishi's first reaction was, "Ah, Mother Lion, you are so careless. Can't you separate such a big piece of meat? The cubs will fight. Can't they eat properly?" But just as he stepped out to help, he retracted his claws. He thought, could it be that the lionesses did this on purpose? It was not without benefits to train the habit of snatching food at a young age. Forget it, forget it. I respect the way mother lions educate their children. After eating for a while, another team of lionesses returned. They brought back a wild deer. Xiao Qishi, who was watching the lionesses eat, was hungry. His expectant expression gradually froze. No way, how could it be a wild deer? He suddenly felt that there was no love left. Boo-hoo, he was traumatized by eating wild deer. He did not want to eat wild deer. It seemed that he could only wait for Ao Daisai and the others to return. The 5 brothers went out much later than the lionesses, but they did not return very late. They indeed brought back a zebra. The lionesses who were still eating raised their heads, as if shocked by this scene. Their frozen expressions seemed to say, "What the F***ck? Cohabitation? No, the 6 lions did not mind the lionesses eating from them. But now, it seemed that the prey they brought back was enough to fill their stomachs. As for today, when they had just merged, they still ate themselves for various reasons. The 6 lions stayed together to eat. Zebra meat was delicious. Even the cubs poked their heads out to look. Soon, they were all attracted by the zebra here. As the saying goes, a half-grown boy eats until his father is poor. The little wildebeest over there was obviously not enough food for 10 of their mouths. It was the first time the cubs came to eat beside this group of lions. Their expressions and behavior were still timid. They only dared to stay in the corners and secretly eat. The photographer was surprised by their boldness. This was not their father or uncle. Only Yelishanda was nice to them. The 5 dignified Norman brothers behaved normally. They did not get angry because of the arrival of the cubs. Yelishanda, who was more popular with the cubs, had a few cubs lying beside her. She felt that this was heaven. So many cubs are sticking to me. I want to feed them meat, boo-hoo. Yelishanda made a happy sound. Yelishanda learned from the mother lion and threw a piece of meat out for the cubs to snatch. Aodisei licked her lips. She seemed to have found a way to make the cubs stay away from Yelishanda, so she also learned to throw some meat out to lure them away. It could be said that she was very scheming. Photographer, you guys are really a harmonious family. After the video of the merger of the 2 popular lion groups was released, it was immediately ridiculed by people. Some said that the lionesses' ability to feed their families was not good enough, and they even let the lions hunt by themselves. Some people ridiculed them for eating separately. Wasn't this cohabitation AA? It was simply a merger of loneliness. However, these were all superficial ridicule. The people actually admired the lions in their hearts. One must know that the entire pride had more than 30 mouths to feed, and they could only rely on the lionesses. The Norman fans were so excited that they wanted to explode. They simply wanted to go downstairs and run 2 laps. The 4th generation that they had watched grow up from a young age had finally entered the stage of adulthood. This was great. Furthermore, he had just reached adulthood and was already married to the powerful Melissa lions. They liked this kind of strong alliance. There was no better choice than this. The outstanding descendants of the famous Lion King and the brave descendants of the legendary lionesses would definitely give birth to stronger cubs. Thinking about how they were about to meet the 5th generation, which loyal fan would be able to remain calm and self-control? Definitely not. The lion and lionesses ate separately, but it did not affect their feelings for each other. After the meal, they walked together and exchanged feelings. During the season when the grass was long and the orioles were flying, the other animals on the grassland were also wandering around their partners, or were on the way to find their partners. During this season when most animals were mating, the silly Yelishanda still foolishly thought that he had not exposed his relationship with Aodisei. However, in fact, their insistence on not touching the lionesses had already been discussed for 800 pages, or even more. When the brothers were dating, Aodisei would stay on the thick tree trunk to sleep, or cuddle with Qiao-Qishi. However, most of the time, Qiao-Qishi was teasing the cubs and did not obediently stay by his side. At this time, Aodisei would half close his eyes and lick his paws while watching Qiao-Qishi play with the cubs. When he missed Qiao-Qishi, he would go down the tree and bite Qiao-Qishi's ear, as if blaming his partner for only caring about playing and neglecting him. Qiao-Qishi did not want to do this. He could only blame himself for being too popular with the cubs. Just now, when he was lying on the tree trunk with Aodisei, he attracted a group of mischievous cubs. In order not to disturb Aodisei's sleep, he tiptoed and secretly took the cubs away. Now that Aodisei was awake, he left the cubs behind and kissed Aodisei. He even made cute sounds to explain to Aodisei that he did not deliberately neglect his partner. Aodisei was very easy to coax and never got angry. As he gently bit Qiao-Qishi, He looked at the sky. It was already late, but the brothers were still dating the lionesses, and they had not eaten today. Oh! Qiao Qishi acted coquettishly to Ao Daisai. He was hungry. However, he did not want to disturb the couples who were still dating. His mood was very complicated. After all, Yelishanda wanted to take care of the cubs. It was said that a lion and a lioness could get pregnant after being intimate for a few days. Ao Daisai responded softly as if saying, "Let me take you hunting. Let's go." The tall and strong white lion turned around and led the way. Yelishanda followed him happily. The hungry cubs also followed eagerly, leaving their mother unable to do anything to them. After all, the cubs knew that they would have food to eat if they followed their uncle. The lionesses in charge of taking care of the children could only follow. Let the lions who were full of love continue to make food. Their lives still had to operate normally. Otis and his wife, along with the 2 lionesses, worked together to hunt a zebra. They brought the 10 lionesses with them and happily ate the zebra. Was this the joy of secretly giving them preferential treatment? Sob, 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 they were really happy. Without that little bastard Dunz around, Qiao Qishi immediately dug out the zebra's internal organs. Of course, he did not eat them alone. He generously shared them with everyone. After eating half of the internal organs, a group of wild dogs approached with strange cries. Qiao Qishi had long sensed them and cursed his bad luck. Ao Daisai looked back and did not take it seriously. Since her boyfriend's attitude was so calm, Qiao Qishi could only eat calmly. The combat strength of more than 20 wild dogs was still very strong. After watching for a while, they started to approach step by step, trying to use their numbers to surround the 4 lions. The mother lion was a little afraid and her eyes started to look uneasy. This was because wild dogs were 100% lethal to cubs. Even if there were 4 adult lions, they could not watch over 10 cubs. Furthermore, the mother lion was not sure if the lion would help her protect her children. They stopped eating, stood up, and bared their teeth in front of the food and the cubs. Seeing this, Qiao Qishi could not eat in peace. He licked his mouth absent-mindedly, his eyes filled with worry. Were the wild dogs really going to attack? Were their heads stuck in the door? He had more than 20 adult lions on his side. If they were just waiting for the leftovers at the side. Oh no, that would not do either. There were still other lions after he finished eating. These wild dogs could forget about picking up the leftovers. In order to leave some food for Dunz and the others, Yelishanda immediately got up and chased the wild dogs away. Realizing that the wild dogs were approaching step by step, Ao Daisai seemed to be angered by them. When he looked up again, his brows were filled with killing intent. He roared and suddenly rushed towards a wild dog closest to him. The wild dog that had been paying attention to him did not notice the signs of his attack at all. It only had time to scream before its neck was bitten. After Ao Daisai bit the wild dog, he did not hesitate to swing his head twice in the air. The wild dog that had still had the strength to scream just now instantly turned into a corpse. Clearly, its neck was broken. His cruel actions and the death of his companion immediately suppressed the other wild dogs that were attacking, causing them to be timid. After being unable to gain any benefits from the entanglement, they immediately chose to escape dejectedly. Ao Daisai's fury not only suppressed the wild dogs, but also scared away the vultures and other carnivorous birds that were peeping around. They were all frightened by this white lion. The baboons in the forest watched this scene from afar. They were also carnivores, but they would not leave the bushes to provoke lions. They would only wait for their prey to come to them. Perhaps after eating their fill, the cubs would come to the forest to play. Then, the baboons would have a chance to fill their stomach. Of course, the mother lion would not let such a dangerous thing happen. They never allowed the cubs to play in the forest. It was too dangerous there. In the end, the other lions rushed over. The lions that were already full left their prey and gave the remaining food to the members of the pride. Aodisei picked up the cold wild dog corpse and went to patrol the territory. As he walked, he let out a threatening roar. The appearance of so many wild dogs in his territory was not allowed, and this infuriated him. Xiao Qishi was not used to roaring at the air while patrolling. He felt that it was silly, but Aodisei was so handsome when he did it. He liked it so much. What a lion with a personality. Wild dog, hello? Hello my ass. Xiao Qishi thought righteously, everyone is trying to survive. No one is more pitiful than the other. Aren't you guys coming together to snatch our food? If they could kill a few cubs, would the wild dogs pity them? Of course not. Leader Lena, who was hunting in the distance, heard the roars of the lions patrolling the territory, which seemed to include her own territory. This meant that the lions were willing to protect their safety and resist all invaders for them, as well as any possible dangers. She should be relieved. Not long after, good news came from this harmonious pride. The 5 female lions were pregnant one after another. The lions could tell if they were pregnant from their scent. The pregnant lionesses would no longer mate. In the pride, pregnant lionesses were still the main hunting force. The early stages of pregnancy did not affect their combat strength much until their stomachs were so big that it was inconvenient for them to hunt. However, in Yalishanda's pride, pregnant lionesses naturally did not have the chance to participate in hunting. The lions would bring back enough food to feed the expectant mothers. The lions who had become fathers would also work harder than before. They would no longer climb trees and sleep every day. The most gluttonous big Yuanzi in the Norman family also knew to give up his supper to his pregnant wife. The photographer captured the scene of him happily biting the zebra leg to find the pregnant lionesses. He was touched. It seemed that every lion raised by Yalishanda was a model lion on the grassland. It was no wonder that they had already become the pride with the most attention. It was because a group of good lions who were loyal, righteous, and made of flesh and blood had an irresistible charm. The brothers had won the hearts of Melissa's pride before they reached adulthood. They knew that not only did humans recognize this charm, but the lionesses were not blind either. After living with this group of outstanding lions for a period of time, the female lions gradually realized that the burden of supporting the family was not entirely on them. They could raise their descendants in peace. Xiao Qishi could not sniff the scent of his daughter-in-law, so he did not know that 5 female lions in the pride were pregnant at first. He only found out after the pregnancy was obvious. Then, he was overjoyed. He counted. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He was really crazy. When Yalishanda saw that the lionesses were pregnant with cubs, the whole group watched him act like he was having epilepsy. Woo 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 woo. Yalishanda ran from one small slope to another, and then from another small slope to another small slope. He came down from this tree and climbed up another tree. He was so happy, so happy, so happy. Xiao Qishi, from today onwards my supper will also be given to the pregnant mothers. When the next meal came, he did do so, but the outcome was not good. The 4 brothers did not suspect that he was seducing their wives. This did not exist. Everyone knew that Yalishanda was Do's target. This was not the main point. The main point was that Do was so fierce. Some lions also dared to do so. Xiao Qishi sneakily saved some food from his mouth and fed it to his expectant mother. When Aodisei caught him, Aodisei gave him a good beating. Because of Aodisei's jealousy, Yalishanda's behavior had angered him. Therefore, the entire pride saw Aodisei chase Xiao Qishi from this small slope to that small slope. Boo-hoo! Yalishanda felt wronged and felt indignant. Besides, wasn't it too tiring to run around? He gave up and lay on the ground with a thud. Life and death are determined by fate, wealth and honor are determined by the heavens. The author has something to say. 5 furry nests. If it was me, I would also go crazy. Many of my friends asked me about the next animal. Actually, I was also thinking about which animal to arrange first. Chapter 68. Reality proved that rolling shamelessly worked on Aodisai every time. Even if he looked very angry, as long as Qiao Qishi exposed her belly and gave up resisting, he could not do anything. At most, he would push her lightly to warn her. At the same time, he let out a deterrent roar. He was attacking Qiao Qishi and also warning the other lionesses not to provoke this lion with an owner. The female lions in the territory lay in rows and watched the commotion. They were not blind and would not provoke these two lions who only had eyes for each other. They had their own spouses. Aodisai's true temper could only be vented on his prey and hyenas. After he had roared enough, he turned around and went out to patrol in a huff. Qiao Qishi, who had been beaten up, wagged her tail and followed obediently like a puppy. Clearly, she knew that she had done something wrong. Roar. I was wrong, I was wrong. I was really wrong. Moi. The little cutie, who weighed 600 to 700 kilograms, rubbed against him and even hugged his neck with a pair of thick claws. Even the strong white lion could not hold on and fell to the ground. It opened its mouth and pressed the other party to the ground to roll. Photographer. The two grassland wildcats were fighting again. In the entire pride, other than the 10 subadult cubs, the ones who liked to chase and play the most were Yalashanda and the white lion. They looked so happy. However, this was also true. The period from 5 to 10 years old was the most capable period in a lion's life. They lived a little better during this period, but not every lion was so lucky. From this day onwards, Qiao Qishi did not dare to save food to feed the pregnant lionesses. He was afraid that if Aodisai got angry, it would not be as simple as beating him up. If the pregnant lionesses were implicated because of this, things would be bad. The lionesses were pregnant, which meant that the dry season had arrived as scheduled. The drawbacks of the pride gradually appeared in the season when food was scarce. Other than the lionesses in the pride who were about to give birth, there were still 10 adult lions with increasing appetites to feed. The burden on the lions was clearly much heavier than when they were single. Everyone could not help but worry about the operation of this pride. The scorching sun scorched the earth. A group of lions lay on the dry grass that was not cool, panting with their mouths open. Even the wind was hot, and there were flies and mosquitoes that could not be chased away. There was no season more annoying than this. The little lion cub that was bouncing around during the rainy season was also listless at this moment. It even walked listlessly. Firstly, it was because the weather was hot. Secondly, he was hungry. But the sun was so bright, would the adult lions go out to hunt? After waiting for a long time, a lion with a very upright face finally stood up and slowly walked forward, as if it was going out to hunt. Qiao Qishi knew that now was not the time to hunt. The high temperature would make her body unbearable during the hunt. However, there was no choice. If the temperature was slightly cooler, the prey would gather together and hide. It would be difficult to break through. Seeing him leave, a few lions followed step by step. Of course, Aodisai was at the front. This pure white lion from the North Pole could not tolerate the high temperature of the grassland. However, for the survival of the pride, they still resolutely set out. The sun stretched their shadows on the ground. There were a total of 4 lions, and 2 of them stayed in the territory. The ones who followed them were not Purple Lightning and Big Yuanzi, who had the strongest combat strength. Things were different now. In terms of combat strength, they would be more inclined to protect the pride. It was not that the second son, Qingfeng, and the fourth son, Qing Shuang, were not strong. In fact, it was the same for any one of them if they went all out. If they hunted, as long as they encountered suitable prey, the 4 of them were more than enough. Passing by the water source in their territory, the 4 lions went forward to drink some water to quench their thirst. Xiao Qishi was the first to drink. She turned her head and glanced at her boyfriend's still bulging abdomen. He seemed to have lost a little more weight. Walking under the shade of the trees by the water, a few tortoises were cooling off. The lions looked at them curiously, as if they were considering whether the tortoises were delicious. This was the food of the crocodiles. In fact, the bite force of a crocodile was quite terrifying. It could easily crush the hard shell of a tortoise. The bite force of a lion was not as strong as that of a jaguar and a crocodile. Qingfeng and Qing Shuang were probably hungry. They actually went over to sniff these strange things crawling all over the ground. However, when they went over, the tortoises had already retracted their limbs and heads. The lions could not do anything to them. Xiao Qishi and Ao Daisai were not interested. They had seen too many tortoises and knew that even if they could eat them, they could not. Generally speaking, where there were lions, most animals would run away. However, there were some animals on the grassland who were not afraid of lions, or rather, they were not afraid of anything. That was the legendary honey badger of the grassland. Most people affectionately called him Brother Flat Top because the hair on his head and back was white. The rest of his hair was black, and he looked like he had deliberately dyed his hair. It was said that one badger could fight 3 tigers, and 10 badgers could create a new era. This honey badger, who was recklessly looking for food, bumped into Xiao Qishi's foot. Not only did he not blame himself for being blind, he even attacked the place that was blocking his way. Injured lion Xiao Qishi. I was stunned and wanted to get angry, but when I looked, it was Brother Flat Top. The 4 lions watched the honey badger run wild, and then shuttled past their feet. None of the lions attacked the honey badger. Firstly, it was because the honey badger meat was too little and not delicious. Secondly, it was to save energy. If they had the energy, they might as well go for bigger prey. Ao Daisai treated the honey badger as an ordinary rabbit. This was not a threat to Xiao Qishi. He only took a few glances and continued forward. Now that they were hunting, they had to go further away. The hot wind blew the smell of rotten meat. The 4 lions walked over at the same time. The polar bear did not mind rotten meat, and neither did the lion. However, when they arrived, they did not want to eat this dead animal. That was because this was a defeated lion. The few big cats stood at the side in a daze, looked at each other, and then chose to leave. They were lions with style. No matter how hungry they were, they would not eat the meat of their own kind. Some lions on this grassland would eat other lions alive. As long as they could win in strength, they could do anything. Therefore, even if it was a powerful lion, casualties could be seen everywhere. Xiao Qishi felt sad for the corpse of his own kind, but he did not feel sad. The hot sun made the big cats' noses dry, but Ao Daisai still determined the direction of the prey with his nose. It was the wildebeest that little bear did not like to eat. However, in this season, not to mention the wildebeest, even the most smelly antelope could be eaten with relish by little bear. The wildebeest was not difficult to hunt. The 4 lions were divided into 2 teams, led by Ao Daisai and Xiao Qishi. They had rich hunting experience. In this season of life and death, they did not play and let the children take care of themselves. The most important thing was to fill their stomach. The attacks of the 2 teams of lions caused a commotion among the wildebeest herd. Hundreds of wildebeest collided on the mud, and the safety of the lions was greatly threatened. However, the wildebeest was a life-saving food. They would never give up the prey that was almost in their hands. They could only be careful and entangle with the wildebeest. Xiao Qishi, who was biting the wildebeest and panting, thought that if another lion came to help at this time, they could easily win. However, the other lions were still waiting for them to bring back food to fill their stomachs so that they could take on the next hunting mission. Therefore, this time, they had to work harder and rely on themselves. At this time, Xiao Qishi saw a wildebeest behind Lao Si charging straight towards them. The horns on its head were sharp. He was so scared that his eyes widened. In the next second, he bit the wildebeest's anus. The wildebeest immediately ran in pain and took them out of the wildebeest's range. Lao Si roared furiously and used all his strength to bite the wildebeest's neck. At this time, he could not hold on any longer. He got down from the wildebeest and gave his hot muscles a chance to cool down. Hunting under the big sun reduced their combat power by at least half. Therefore, it was only suitable for a quick battle. If they fought for a long time, they would be burned to death. Qiao Qishi also got down from the wildebeest and panted violently. Fortunately, the wildebeest also staggered and did not have the strength to run anymore. In the end, it fell down and could no longer get up. As their hunting ended, Ao Daisai and Qingfeng also held down their prey. The wildebeest under them was making its final struggle. It kept shaking its head and trying to attack the lions with its horns. They were at the edge of the wildebeest herd and attracted the most wildebeest to attack them. Qiao Qishi immediately rushed over to cover them, lest these angry wildebeest rushed over and attacked them with their horns. Even a strong lion would be disabled. With Qiao Qishi's cover, Ao Daisai and Qingfeng immediately dragged the wildebeest away. On the other side, Lao Si rested for a moment and dragged the wildebeest away from the battlefield alone. The 4 lions stopped under the shade of a tree. Before they could catch their breath, they could not wait to bite open the skin of their prey and eat the fresh meat in big mouthfuls. They loved to be clean, but now they were no longer clean. They were no different from many sloppy lions. But it was the dry season, so it was understandable. When the rain fell, they would be the most beautiful cubs on the grassland. Woo woo. Qiao Qishi had never felt that the wildebeest tasted so good. Sure enough, they were picky with their food. When they were hungry, everything tasted good. After eating half full, Qiao Qishi stopped eating. The other lions were the same. Although they were not satisfied, they restrained themselves and licked their mouths, preparing to take the prey back. Walking so far with the prey in their mouth was also a kind of danger. Fortunately, they had all replenished their food. Even if they fought, they still had the strength. The 4 lions that protected the food back to their territory all had fierce gazes. They looked exceptionally difficult to provoke. Even if other carnivores coveted their food, they hesitated and were always afraid. White Lion was quite a deterrent in the surroundings because he always patrolled the surroundings with the corpses of invaders in his mouth. He kept demonstrating to these carnivores living in his territory. If they went forward to snatch their food this time, White Lion might lead the pride to encircle and annihilate their entire tribe next time. They returned to their territory peacefully. The other lions had already heard the news and came over. Purple Lightning and Big Yuanzi took the prey brought back by their brothers and dragged it back under the tree to call the members of the pride to eat. Leader Lena immediately stopped the commotion of the subadult cubs. The pregnant lionesses and lions were the first to enjoy the food. The other lions were the last to enjoy it. While they were eating, the 4 lions that had returned from outside lay in the shade of the tree, panting and napping. After the temperature dropped slightly, they entered a deeper sleep. At this moment, another group of lions in the pride were all female lions. They were going out to hunt and bring back a second meal for the pride at night. There were many lions in the pride. Only then could they ensure that there was enough food. When the female lions went out to hunt, Purple Lightning and Big Yuanzi patrolled the surroundings to protect the safety of the pride. Even if the 4 sleeping lions heard that Purple Lightning and the others were fighting with other lions, as long as it was not a particularly big battle, they could not be bothered to get up and help. Anyway, if they could not win, Big Yuanzi would roar and send out a signal for help. The 4 lions slept from evening to late at night. At this moment, the female lions brought back supper and called them up to eat. Qiao Qishi flipped his stomach and continued to sleep. This position was extremely comfortable. It would be even better if someone scratched his neck. Ao Daisai was afraid that the simple-minded little bear would starve to death, so he ignored everyone's objections and brought a leg to eat with him. Qiao Qishi opened his eyes and looked. Oh, it was actually a zebra leg. He immediately got up and licked his lips, thinking that no wonder he was gone for so long. It turned out that he was doing big business. It was not that he said it, but the combat strength of the female lions in the pride was not to be underestimated. In terms of generosity, they were not inferior to the lions at all. Of course, as long as they had enough stamina and did not have to worry about the rear, the strength of the female lions' teamwork could be invincible. The support and protection of the lions gave the female lions a lot of room to play. They actually had a relatively easy time during this dry season. The photographer would never have dreamed that the lions knew how to implement a two-shift hunting system. In terms of the distribution of combat strength, they had arranged it clearly. This way, the lion had enough time to rest and food, and the female lions also had enough time to rest and food. Their cooperation was a win-win situation. They truly realized the survival strategy of 1 + 1 was greater than 2. Under the two-shift system, this pride survived steadily. The dry season was not over yet. The 5 female lions, who were pregnant for almost the same time, were about to give birth. Usually, the female lions who were about to give birth would avoid the male lions. Their tempers would become more cautious or unpredictable until they hid and gave birth to cubs. This was the instinct of a lioness and also one of the signs of insecurity. Thanks to the good atmosphere of this pride, the pregnant female lions had never been too frightened and uneasy. They were not worried that these mild-tempered lions would pose a threat to them, nor did they have to worry about sudden invaders. Their powerful blood relatives would protect them. The first 2 female lions to attack found a hidden place nearby and gave birth. The other lions could not approach and patrolled the surroundings to prevent the blood energy from attracting predators like hyenas. If they had the chance to eat cubs, the hyenas and wild dogs would not be polite. When the lionesses gave birth, Qiao Qishi was so happy that she jumped 3 times. She was even happier than her biological father. He volunteered to be a guard and did not close his eyes for the entire night. Qiao Qishi was not sleeping beside him, and Ao Daisai could not sleep either. Hence, she could only play with the energetic little bear. When they were guarding, the 2 of them stayed together. Qiao Qishi squatted upright and had a sense of mission. She was not sleepy at all. Otis, on the other hand, was sleeping soundly beside him. Sleep, sleep. You're a gay bear lion who has never been a father in your 2 lifetimes. You naturally can't experience the joy of your son's birth. However, that did not seem right. He was raised by Ao Daisai with great difficulty. Qiao Qishi looked gently at Ao Daisai's face. The other party must have experienced the feeling of having a son. He would be Ao Daisai's son, friend, and partner. Thinking about it, it seemed that Ao Daisai did not lack anything. After a night of hard work, the 2 female lions gave birth to 3 and 4 cubs respectively. Ao Daisai and Qiao Qishi, who had sharp hearing, heard the cries of the cubs. Even Ao Daisai, who did not care, twitched her ears to show that she knew. After giving birth to the cubs, the lionesses would eat the placenta to replenish their strength. They would also lick the blood stains from giving birth to eliminate the smell. 2 days later, they came out to eat. After eating, they returned to the cubs to feed them milk. In the next half a month, the other pregnant lionesses also gave birth one after another. Since it was their first child, they gave birth to fewer cubs. They all gave birth to 2 cubs. 13 cubs were added to the pride at once, making the pride unprecedentedly huge. Of course, in the eyes of humans, the cubs did not count because they might not be able to grow up. Seeing that the lionesses' stomachs had become smaller, people knew that the 5th generation of the Norman family had arrived. However, they did not know how many cubs had been born. People were looking forward to it. In the month that the lionesses hid the cubs, the lions in the territory went further to hunt and fight harder in order to hunt more food. It was precisely because of their support that the pride, which could bear the breastfeeding of 5 lionesses, could take a breather. One morning a month later, The lionesses brought the cubs out of their hiding place and returned to the pride to meet everyone. Xiao Qishi had been looking forward to it for a long time. He climbed up the tree and stretched his neck to count the cubs. Good Lord, a total of 13 cubs came back one after another. They were all round and very healthy and lively. Of course, they were so well nourished. Although there were not many cubs, there was nothing to say about their quality. Xiao Qishi did not know how to read their bones and faces. He only knew that the cubs were furry. They were too cute, too cute, too cute. Ah! The video of the return of the cubs was still very clear under the efforts of the cameraman. They could even tell which litter belonged to whose and which litter belonged to through the past video information. The lions themselves knew that the 2 litters in front of them belonged to De Yuanzi and Qingfeng. The lionesses led their children to come into contact with their fathers. Xiao Qishi's eyes widened. He had always been very curious. Who was so powerful to have 2 pregnant wives at the same time? Now, it was finally time to reveal the answer. Nervous. Exciting. Before the answer was revealed, Xiao Qishi had been blindly guessing De Yuanzi because he was very enthusiastic. Was it De Yuanzi? No. The lionesses with the twins all passed by De Yuanzi. In the end, 2 litters came to 4th brother's side, and 1 went to 3rd brother's side. Yulishanda's face was filled with question marks. He only wanted to ask daughters-in-law, "Did you recognize the wrong husband?" It was the first time the 4 brothers had come into contact with their children. They, who were not hot-tempered to begin with, lay on the ground with gentle gazes. The lionesses were lovey-dovey beside their spouses, as if they were demonstrating to the cubs that this was their father. There was no need to be afraid. The cubs, who were seeing their father for the first time, seemed a little timid and shy. Their innocent eyes were filled with uneasiness, but soon, under their mother's lead, they accepted their lion father and started playing with him. The lion, who was usually majestic and domineering on the battlefield, restrained his temper in front of his own flesh and blood. He used the most gentle strength in his life to gently lick the cubs who had just turned a month old. Yulishanda stared at the harmonious scene on the ground without blinking. His heart was filled with jealousy. He felt so sour because of the lemon. Sob, 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 the cubs are rubbing against me too. Please. Looking at the cub that had just turned a month old, and then looking at the 10 little cubs that were more than a year old under the tree, Alexander quickly moved his gaze away. He had gone up the tree to avoid the fate of being played by the cubs. Ao Daisai, who was watching the scene of father and son recognition together, seemed to be reminded of this warm and loving scene. He walked over slowly and helped Xiao Qishi chase away the cubs under the tree without any effort. Xiao Qishi immediately came down and climbed onto Ao Daisai to act coquettishly. Ow ow! The 4 brothers had wives, cubs, and a big and beautiful family. He also had Ao Daisai. No matter how much wind and rain they went through, they were still miraculously together. Although life was occasionally difficult, they were also very happy. In the face of the little bear's coquettishness, Ao Daisai gently put away the barbs on his tongue and gently licked Yulishanda's cute face, just like his brothers licked their children who had just turned a month old. He loved Yulishanda, who he had raised like a child. The author has something to say. I received a lot of comments yesterday. The killer whale is very popular, and the peacock is also very popular. Both of them will be arranged W. Chapter 69. After returning to the Pride, the cubs would adapt to their family members one by one in the following period of time. Fortunately, they grew up in a unique lion pride. Other than their parents, the first person to become familiar with the cubs was, of course, Xiao Qishi, who would play with the cubs when she had nothing to do. Under his deliberate seduction, he would do everything possible, such as making a cat teaser and playing hide-and-seek. Before long, the cubs would be even more clingy to him than to their own father. Big brother, second brother, third brother and fourth brother. Good fellow, you are the father. But this was also good. Lions were more or less impatient to take care of their children. It was really good that Xiao Qixi could help them disperse their firepower and let them sleep soundly. Of course, the cubs, who had just turned 1 month old, were very fun to play with. Yalashanda and the cubs played so much that they missed their bedtime. When it was his turn to hunt, he yawned while walking on the road. The students who had stayed up all night at the internet cafe in school should understand this feeling. It was like sleepwalking during the day. The photographers saw that among the row of majestic and solemn lions, there was always one who looked out of place. Did Yalashanda steal a sheep last night? Fortunately, although Xiao Qixi was not in tune, she did not drag him down during the hunt. He just felt that it was too tiring to hunt when he was sleepy like a dog. A lion's eyes could not be opened very well under the scorching sun. Now that they were narrowed into slits, he saw that the zebra's eyes were flat. Ao Daisai seemed to notice that Xiao Qixi was sleepy. He stared at her for a few seconds and did not show any dissatisfaction. After the hunt was successful, he tore off a piece of meat and fed it to her, as if he thought that Xiao Qixi was not feeling well. In the eyes of animals, if she was not feeling well, she would be fine after eating more meat and sleeping. What Xiao Qixi needed now was to eat and sleep well. She did not want to play with the cubs anymore. Feeling guilty, he accepted Ao Daisai's warm greetings. At the same time, he decided to have a good rest tonight. The zebra was too big, so the smart lions split it up. Each lion was responsible for one part of the zebra's body. Perhaps Otis wanted to take care of Alisanda, so he gave the lightest part to Alisanda. The most important thing was undoubtedly his own mission. Yalashanda, I'm so grateful. I'm so touched. I love Ao Daisai. Even though that was what he thought, he still rubbed his head against the Ao Daisai gratefully and started working seriously. After the zebra was brought back, the 13 little lions surrounded Xiao Qixi and cried out at her. Their pleas of wanting to eat meat almost melted Xiao Qixi's heart. The lionesses who were lying on the ground feeding looked on blankly, unable to do anything to their children. They would never know how tempting an intelligent creature who could deliberately tease the little lions was to the little lions. Xiao Qixi should have put down the prey and gone to sleep to catch up on sleep. He really needed a quick sleep now. However, when he looked down and saw a group of furry lions drowning his limbs, he changed his mind. Just sleep after feeding the little lions? The lions chewed on pieces of meat, took care of the little furry balls waiting to be fed, and satisfied every pair of cute eyes that were filled with desire. This would make Yalashanda feel a strong sense of happiness. How should he put it? They were close. He really doted on these little lions. He had originally agreed to go to sleep after feeding them, but after feeding them, he accidentally played for a while. When Xiao Qixi finally lay down to sleep, he had just finished his supper. The next day, he slept until noon and was about to go hunting. Xiao Qixi felt that his head was heavy and his feet were light. It was a typical side effect of staying up late. He was so tired. It was not that he did not want to go hunting, but he would definitely be a burden if he went out in this situation. After cuddling with Ao Daisai for a while, Xiao Qixi knew that Ao Daisai would definitely agree to him being lazy. However, there was a shortage of one lion, and there had to be another lion to fill in. After Xiao Qixi was done cuddling with his boyfriend under the shade of a tree, he immediately got up and walked to Purple Lightning's side. The lion on top of him immediately pricked up his ears when he sensed him coming over. It was obvious that he was vigilant. "Oh, hello, little Purple Lightning." Recently, the two of them had not communicated much. Xiao Qixi thought to himself. Firstly, it was because life during the dry season was difficult and there was no time. Secondly, there were too many trivial matters in the pride. Purple Lightning passively accepted the communication. When Xiao Qixi approached him, he looked at Do instead. Although it could not be said that he was afraid of doe, he was more or less afraid. Fortunately, the white lion was sleeping and did not stare at its partner all the time. Purple Lightning clearly relaxed a little. Only then did he focus on communicating with Qiao-Qishi. The lions' communication was nothing more than rubbing against each other. Roar! Qiao-Qishi expressed himself. Little Lightning, can you go hunting later? I'm so sleepy. Today, it's my turn to stay at the base. Roar! Purple Lightning responded, but he probably did not know what he was saying. He did not know what Purple Lightning was saying either. However, it did not matter. This did not affect their communication. Roar! Your son and daughter are quite handsome. Why did you only give birth to 2? Don't you want to work hard while you're still young? Yalashanda began to mutter in his heart. Aya, if you want 2 more now, I can help you take care of them. In the future, when I'm not in the pride, you won't be so relaxed, okay? Roar! Purple Lightning did not know what he was trying to say. The photographer did not understand, and neither did Qiao-Qishi. However, his next action was quite easy to understand. He was constantly paying attention to Little 3. When he realized that Little 4 had woken up, he immediately changed to another place to stay. However, Little 4 stretched lazily and walked towards him. The 2 brothers rolled on the ground and exchanged pointers for a while. Then, they both brought their younger brothers out to hunt. At this time, Yalashanda was hanging on a tree and sleeping. His whole body was emitting an aura that said, I want to skip work today. The 1-year-old pseudo-adult lion cubs had already learned how to climb trees. They imitated the adult lions and hung on the trees one by one to enjoy the cool air. Some rested their chins on the tree trunks, some rested their heads on their paws, and some even stuck out their tongues when they slept. It was very cute. The female lions also complained that the ground was too hot. Fortunately, there was a big tree next door. Only the cubs who were still drinking milk could not climb up. They stayed under the tree and chased after each other. When they were tired, they lay down and dozed off. In this lively big family, a picture of Meng Meng could be casually taken. Purple Lightning had not participated in the hunt for a few days. After being abducted by Little 4, he became the main force of the hunt today. Perhaps it was because he had not exercised for too long. Today, he finally came out and did not have to be bothered by the cubs. He seemed to be quite happy. Purple Lightning, who had just become a father, was very brave during the hunt. Therefore, today's hunt went very smoothly. He, who could not eat his fill every meal, restrained his appetite like his brothers. When he was almost done eating, he licked his paws and stopped eating. They were not greedy lions. However, there were many male lions on the grassland. They ate until they were fat and had big bellies. The other members of the pride were all skinny. The key was that the lionesses who raised them did not dare to speak out. This was also one of the reasons why the survival rate of the cubs was low. It was because they could not eat their fill and did not have a good physique to survive the harsh environment and climate. It would be strange if they could survive. It was a great miracle that the 10 cubs of Melissa's pride could all safely grow up to a year old. The 6 lions with strong tolerance contributed greatly to this. Qiao-Qishi did not go out to work today. After shamelessly going down the tree and eating a half-full meal, he consciously went out to patrol with Big Yuanzi. Big Yuanzi probably did not expect that the one patrolling with him today would be Qiao-Qishi. He looked very happy and kept bumping into Qiao-Qishi's stomach and head as they walked on the road. Qiao-Qishi, of course, bumped back without saying anything. Yoho, as both of them were as thick as an elephant's leg, they did not notice that Ao Daisai was looking at them coldly from behind. If not for the fact that he was too tired after the hunt and did not have the extra energy to participate in the patrol, Ao Daisai would be very happy to stay between Qiao-Qishi and Big Yuanzi and let these 2 retarded children stop. Ever since the 2 prides merged, Qiao Qishi had not participated in the patrol activities. He was ashamed to think about it, so he pulled himself together today and tried his best to remember how vast his territory was. There were many animals living near them. There was a giraffe, which was too aggressive. They could not kill it and had not eaten it yet. Furthermore, the giraffe was so cute. Forget it. When they passed by, they raised their heads and swallowed their saliva. The main reason was that the other party was too strong, so they could only say something against their will: "We don't want to eat it." There were also warthogs. The male warthogs were coquettish. Qiao Qishi did not want to eat them unless he had no choice. As for the female warthogs, they spent most of their time taking care of their cubs. They were very fierce and were not cost-effective. Elephant herds would occasionally pass by and drink water from the water source in their territory. Once they drank, most of the water would be gone. They were truly bandits. However, elephants were so fierce. What could the weak, helpless, and pitiful them do? Of course, they turned a blind eye. As Qiao Qishi and Big Yuanzi walked, they encountered a cheetah hunting a gazelle. This type of gazelle ran very fast. Ordinary lions could not catch up to it. Only cheetahs could challenge it. When the smell of blood drifted over, it meant that the cheetah in the grass had already succeeded. If they were greedy lions, they would go forward to snatch the prey's food even if they were not hungry. However, they were not. Big Yuanzi continued to patrol the territory without much interest. Qiao Qishi was thinking that this cheetah lived in this territory and should not have experienced the depressing incident of a lion snatching food. That was indeed the case. It was impossible for Qiao Qishi not to know that ever since they occupied this territory, there were more cheetahs and leopards in the territory. The humans who were tracking the cheetahs and leopards also discovered this phenomenon. It seemed that the big cats with colorful arms liked to be neighbors with this Yalashanda pride. Over time, the big cats with colorful arms, who had led a difficult life in the territories of other prides, groped their way here. Their prey did not conflict with lions. Lions liked large herbivores and usually disdained hunting small gazelles, mainly because there was little meat and the success rate was low. Of course, snatching the gazelle in the cheetah's mouth was different. The success rate was 100%. 2 lions swayed past him. The cheetah biting the gazelle's neck almost thought that he was seeing things. He was stunned for a moment before returning to his senses and hurriedly eating. There were lions patrolling hard nearby. This meant that no blind hyenas or wild dogs would approach for the time being. This cheetah could enjoy this hard-earned meal in peace. Unlike lions, who needed a vast territory to live, cheetahs and leopards did not mind living in small houses. As long as there was enough food, they usually would not deliberately expand their territory. The Yalashanda pride occupied a frightening area. It was enough for many cheetahs and leopards to live here. Perhaps through this interaction, the cheetah would more intuitively confirm that the lions here had good tempers. The 2 lions that did not choose to be rogue bandits smelled the rotting smell of many animals on the way to patrol. This was normal during the dry season. Some were the remains of prey left behind by carnivores, and some had died unnaturally, such as dying tragically in a fight or starving to death. The sky was completely dark. Qiao Qishi and Big Yuanzi were still patrolling the territory of Melissa's pride. Now, Qiao Qishi knew that Big Yuanzi and Purple Lightning's work was not easy either. It would be at least midnight when they returned this time. It was just in time for supper. At this moment, in the center of the territory, Ao Daisai woke up and recovered a lot of energy. He realized that the little bear, who had gone out to patrol, had not returned and looked a little worried. Ao Daisai looked up and sniffed the distance between them. He decided to take a shortcut to find the other party. The cameramen were surprised. This white lion was really affectionate. He actually went to pick up his beloved lion from the night shift. Qiao Qishi also did not expect Ao Daisai to pick him up from the night shift. When he saw the other party's tall figure appear, he was very surprised and quickly ran over to kiss and rub against him. Then, the three lions continued to patrol the rest of the territory. Roar! Yulashanda's legs were about to break. He did not expect the territory to be so big. He was no longer envious of Purple Lightning and Big Uenzi, who stayed at home to guard every day. He would rather go out to hunt once a day and focus on sleeping and taking care of the cubs in the rest of the time. Ao Daisai rubbed against the delicate boy next to him lovingly, as if encouraging him to persevere. Along the way, Big Uenzi, who was in charge of roaring, was not in the mood to roar anymore. He looked at Do pitifully. His younger brother had never rubbed against him so gently, nor had he ever comforted him. He only pressed him to the ground and rubbed against him. At 1 or 2 in the morning, they finally came back after a big round. Yulashanda jumped up in joy. It was time to get off work. The hard-working lionesses had already brought back supper. It was 2 female deer, which meant that they could eat their fill tonight. Xiao Qishi ran back to the base camp to snatch the food. As soon as he smelled the deer blood, he immediately braked and ran towards the tree. Goodbye. Eat supper, my ass. Maintain my figure and get beauty sleep. Ao Daisai slowly came to the food and lowered his head to lick the deer blood. He seemed to be recognized as the strongest in the pride. No lion dared to eat around him first. It was only when he took away a deer leg that the other lions swarmed over. Ao Daisai called for his lover under the tree. It was only when the other party came down to eat that he was willing to eat together. This was not a threat. This was his instinct. Xiao Qishi did not want to go down because he would not be able to sleep tonight after eating the deer meat. The small slope welcomed him, however. Ao Daisai had been waiting under the tree. Other than a few cries at the beginning, he lay on the ground and panted. After all, he had just come back and used a lot of energy. Oh right, Ao Daisai had exercised too much today. Maybe he would be interested in his butt? Yulashanda, who was greedy, thought so and sighed in his heart. Sigh, there was really no way to deal with this stubborn wild animal. All right, I'll eat a little. The greedy big cat came down from the tree and shared the thick deer leg with her boyfriend. To be honest, the deer meat was indeed very delicious, second only to the taste of beef. The deer blood was not as pungent as cow blood, and the taste was more popular with Xiao Qishi. After Ao Daisai finished the deer meat, he did not clean his face. Instead, he pressed down on Xiao Qishi and helped him clean the blood around his mouth. In the principle of helping each other, Xiao Qishi also licked his mouth and face. The cameraman could not bear to look at them, but the 2 big cats were so affectionate that they did not care about the lionesses at all. This made many people who were paying attention feel regretful. Yulashanda and White Lion's genes were strong, but they liked each other and did not touch the lionesses who were trying to be nice to them. Now everyone in the world knew that White Lion was jealous. When he was jealous, he was like a flash flood. Even Yulashanda, who had raised him, was afraid of him. Perhaps this was the reason why Yulashanda did not dare to look at the lionesses. Xiao Qishi, Tue. That's because I don't like it. It's not that I don't dare. After a while, White Lion took Yulashanda away from the tree. Their figures quietly disappeared in the dark. The cameraman, who had bought insurance, followed carefully and finally secretly took a precious video of White Lion riding on Yulashanda's crotch. Oh, it was indeed this domineering and jealous White Lion. He looked very familiar. It was not the first time he did this to Yulashanda. His behavior was not rude. He even cleverly used his saliva to prepare the other party. Yulashanda looked a little uncomfortable, especially when White Lion became more and more excited. He obviously could not take it anymore. High and low roars overflowed from the throats of the 2 lions. From the beginning to the end, the one below did not resist at all. It only obeyed and cooperated. This was enough to prove that they were lovers in love and that White Lion did not use force to force Yulashanda. As for the discomfort, it was certain. Lions were felines. Their tools for committing crimes were different from that of humans. In order to ensure a higher probability of pregnancy for females, males had evolved such terrible things as barbs. Of course, it was not a real barb. Otherwise, the recipient would have died from the pain. It was just similar. It was used to fix it. To put it bluntly, it was used to prevent it from falling off. When the subject did not struggle, the lion would not be able to make himself look very ferocious. He could control himself to a certain extent. For example, Aodisai, who doted on Yelishanda, would not release all of its aggression and make the delicate Yelishanda feel pain. The cameraman squatted in the distance and waited for the two lions to end their intimacy. However, they were very impressed to find that White Lion was unexpectedly good at this thing that males cared about the most. It was as good as the other party's combat power. Poor Yelishanda. Generally speaking, there was no absolute superior or inferior between lions. They would take turns depending on their mood. In other words, White Lion might be pressed down by Yelishanda in a while. Just thinking about this scene made people feel that it was very interesting. They wanted to take pictures. However, after waiting for a long time, White Lion was still in the upper position. Yelishanda was being pressed down until he cried out pitifully. Even the cameraman felt that he could not take it anymore. Even if White Lion was willing to lie down obediently later, he would not have the strength to do anything. What a sinister and domineering White Lion! Yelishanda was indeed unable to take it anymore. He did not know how to describe his current feelings. It was as if he had drunk a drug. He was clear-headed and rational. He knew that he should stop the unrestrained Aodisai, but the drug made him lose his ability to move. The ingredients of this drug were naturally Aodisai's gentleness and valiance. He was too handsome and charming. Xiao Qishi could not resist the sweet words coming from the other party's throat, as well as his valiant and gentle actions. All of this made him lose himself. Only the cameraman knew how charming they looked when they were in love. White Lion and Yelishanda did not seem to be simply pursuing sensual pleasure. Their actions were loving and loyal to each other. As a powerful male lion, being willing to submit to another male lion was the most powerful evidence. After the drug wore off, Xiao Qishi regained his senses. He immediately felt that his entire body was not fresh and sticky, especially the tail that had been in close contact with Aodisai. He swore that his entire tail was dirty. Aodisai, who was resting with his partner, seemed to still be savoring the pleasure just now. Hence, he did not have time to solve the awkward little problems for his partner. After a few minutes, he opened his eyes, revealing the pair of blue eyes that Xiao Qishi often looked like a love-struck fool. Today, his blue eyes seemed to be covered with a layer of mist and looked even more beautiful. Aodisai licked his paws as if he was sleepy and wanted to sleep. However, Xiao Qishi kicked his abdomen, causing him to cry out softly. Hence, he got up and worked without complaint. It was very difficult to listen to music in the wild. Fortunately, the surroundings were very quiet at this moment. The cameramen had brought expensive sound recording equipment, and they clearly recorded White Lion's sexy response to Yelishanda. When the video was updated, the audience's reaction was, "Oh wow, my nose is bleeding like a waterfall. The lion slices are so fragrant, so sexy." The author has something to say. This book has been opened for discussion. If you're interested, you can go to Weibo to play. Also, please ask for some nutrient solution. Chio 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 asterisk carrot o carrot asterisk love you guys. Chapter 70. The strongest of the fourth generation, White Lion, had a love-hate relationship with Yelishanda when he was underage. Everyone had witnessed their courtship, and they had almost parted forever. The two of them did not leave behind any descendants, and it had always been a regret in the hearts of their supporters. Now that they saw that they were getting along so happily, the regret in their hearts gradually disappeared. Yelishanda and White Lion were of course special lions. Otherwise, they would not be able to lead this pride to glory. Even in the human world, there were bound to be gains and losses, let alone in the cruel natural world. It seemed that it was impossible to want everything. The two handsome lions generously contributed a video of rolling in bed, which immediately made all the audience change side. They no longer talked about why the two of them did not find a lioness to mate with. They only felt that the two of them were very suitable together. Both of them were equally handsome and powerful. The white lion was more domineering and ferocious, and its entire body was filled with a wild charm. Alexander, on the other hand, was more gentle and cute. He was a lion that was full of tricks and had many shining points. There were already enough cubs in the pride. Among the 13 cubs, there were 7 male cubs and 6 female cubs. In the future, the male cubs would definitely go out to explore, and the female cubs would stay in the pride. Their cousin was more than a year older than them, and there was probably no chance for them to form an alliance. The male cubs should eventually form an alliance with their cousin. Of course, that was a relatively distant matter, at least 3 years later. Right now, Yelishanda's limbs were sore and weak. He could not help but blame Aodisei for doing whatever he wanted when he was in love. He did not even think about the special structure of the cat family and his own talent. After Aodisei was satisfied, he fell asleep on a small soil slope. He had not had the chance to bathe during the dry season, and some of the fur on his body was no longer so white, but his face was still so clean and beautiful. The next day, the sun hung high in the sky again. Xiao Qishi woke up and licked his nose, which was a little uncomfortable because of the dry air. He hated this dusty time too much. Last night's entanglement was like an embellishment and sweetness in a tough life. After the sweetness, there was still bitterness. The female lions formed groups and led the cubs to the water source to drink water. Yelishanda, who had nothing to do, followed beside them to protect them. A flying bird on the road or a dove poking its head out became the object of curiosity for the cubs. They were filled with novelty about everything in this world. His good father, Qingfeng, also came as a guard. He was the first to arrive at the water's edge. For example, a few key words: 2 injured lions, dead. Once, Yelishanda Xiao Qishi's mouth twitched. He already knew about this. His name in this life was still Yelishanda. It seemed that he had formed an indissoluble bond with Yelishanda. Lying on the tree and listening carefully for a long time, Xiao Qishi sorted out the information. It was a piece of news that made him uncomfortable. The 2 lion brothers who had recuperated in his place had been seriously injured and died by a cruel gang. This gang had also hurt Do and even had a grudge against Do's father. It sounded like the 5 brothers of Do were born in a well-known alliance. The development of the pride of African lions was a small society. Xiao Qishi knew about this, but he did not have the mind to pay attention to the amount of information that the photographer had unintentionally revealed. This time, it was completely related to him. Damn, the more he listened, the angrier he became. Turned out that these 4 lions had killed so many lions. His fists were hard. The reason why he had not sought revenge on those enemies was not that Xiao Qishi had forgotten about the hatred. He was just waiting for the right time. When the 2 sides were about the same strength, they would either die or be injured in a battle. But when the other side was in decline, it would be different. Xiao Qishi had only planned to take care of the pride properly before taking revenge with Aodisei. He had not planned to bring the other lions with him. Who knew that the 4 cruel lions were the culprits who had caused the deaths of the 5 brothers' lions? Xiao Qishi looked at the 5 brothers with an extremely pained gaze. It turned out that they had such a past. How could he not take revenge for this blood feud? To put it bluntly, Xiao Qishi felt that even if they were not fighting for their own personal grudges, they were fighting to give the other lions on the grassland a relatively safe environment to live in. Competition was competition, but the other lions also had the right to live. They did not have to fight to the death every time they fought. Along the way, they had fought countless lions, and the victor was almost always decided. They had never harmed a lion's life. About 65 years ago, the number of lions on Earth was 450,000. Only half a century had passed, and now there were only 20,000 left. Regardless of what had happened, the most important thing now was to protect the number of lions and not let it drop any further. Xiao Qixi looked at the little lions that were only a little over a year old. His heart ached, but he was also extremely proud of his decision. Back then, he had saved the 5 brothers in the wet grass and led them to protect these 10 little lions. Now, he had even given birth to 13 little lions. This was a total of 28 little lions. Yelishanda was very proud. And now, he had to silently say sorry in his heart, because the decision he had made this time was not to increase the number of lions, but to decrease it. The news of the 2 lions' deaths made even more people wait for the video of Yelishanda's pride. They wanted to see the cute children they had left behind. They were still growing up in the pride under the protection of lions who were not related to them by blood. 4 males and 6 females. They were very healthy and sturdy. Currently, they were at an age where people did not like dogs, but Yelishanda was as patient with them as ever. He would not ignore the children of the other lions just because the cubs were born. He was really very tolerant. Tears blurred my vision. Fortunately, I left behind 10 children before I left. It shouldn't be too bad. They are lucky to be able to meet a friend like the 6 Lions Alliance in a life full of ruthless battles. Very lucky indeed. Blessings. Under the photographer's gaze, Xiao Qixi suddenly came down from the tree. At this moment, 10 little lions immediately ran towards him, whimpering and wanting to play with him. Feeling sorry for their Xiao Qixi, he licked them one by one with incomparable gentleness. No wonder the little lions like him so much, the photographer thought. After Xiao Qixi licked the little lions' bodies, he squatted on the ground and stared at the children who had lost their fathers for a while, and then at the little lions who were still drinking milk. They were still young and needed a strong lion to protect them for the time being. Yelishanda suppressed the surging emotions in his heart and did what he had to do now. Perhaps it noticed that something was wrong with its partner's mood. Ao Daisai walked over and rubbed against the little bear, whose eyes seemed to be sad. It seemed to be asking, "Are you unhappy? What's wrong?" Xiao Qixi let out a soft roar and leaned against Ao Daisai to show that he was fine. He was just a little emotional. He was unhappy because of other lions. If Ao Daisai could communicate, Xiao Qixi guessed that he would definitely ask, "Which blind bastard made you unhappy? I'll kill him." Little Bear, who could be said to be the king of imagination, was immediately comforted by Ao Daisai and became happy. He sighed and thought, "When the time comes, I'll definitely let you be the main force. Don't worry, we can't win this fierce battle without you." Father, son, and brothers attack together, damn it. When the 4 little lions grow up a little, they will attack together. Back then, Doe and the other brothers had thick manes when they were only 2 years old. Now, the cubs in the pride had better food than Doe and the others did back then. At least, they had never been hungry since they were young and had developed ahead of time. Therefore, they could wait a little longer. There was no hurry now. When the time came, they would take revenge for all their grudges. Not long after, the long-awaited rainy season quietly arrived one night. The weather was finally cool. That was great. The grassland animals that were about to die of thirst heaved a sigh of relief and looked forward to the surging rain filling the riverbed again. The scene of the river flowing through the dry riverbed was shown on the television. Coupled with the relaxed and low narration, it made people feel joy. The herbivores looked forward to the rich water grass growing quickly because they had to hurry up and reproduce. In the season of abundant food, the cubs would welcome a wave of even wilder growth. At this time, The difference in size between a lion and a lioness would be reflected. The adolescent lions started to not like to play with the female lions anymore. They learned fighting and hunting skills from the adult lions. The female cubs followed their mothers and aunts and became half-helpers. The 13 cubs who were still drinking milk also safely survived this dry season and welcomed their first rainy season since they were born. The rain was unfamiliar and fresh. The female lions enjoyed the coolness to their heart's content, while the cubs hid and slowly adapted to the feeling of their fur being wet by the rain. Because they were not used to it, they kept shaking their claws and ears. Their eyes were round and revealed a shock of being offended by the rain. They were so cute. Little Bear Joe could squat at the side and watch such a scene for a day. As for Little Bear Joe, he looked at the cubs foolishly. Aodicei could also turn a blind eye to it for a day. As long as the other party was willing to climb the small slope with him every few days, he was actually very easy to coax. Spring finally returned to the land. The flowers and butterflies came uninvited. The rich water grass caused the prey in the territory to be in group. The lions did not have to run far to hunt anymore. They were now 40 to 50 big and small lions going out to hunt together. The division of labor was still the same as before. The lions were in a team, the lionesses were in a team, and the logistics children were in a team. Xiao Qishi had not been to the front line for many months because the cubs liked him too much. They followed him wherever he went. The photographers took advantage of the terrifying fighting power of the pride to hunt in the distance. Only then did they dare to approach this spectacular kindergarten and take many precious close-up shots. There were even cubs who climbed onto his arm and showed great curiosity towards their cameras. Thank you, Yelishanda, who only watched from the side and did not bare his teeth or roar at them. Needless to say, that calm and confident look was especially stylish. Photographer A: Oh my God, the cubs have climbed onto my hat and are biting it. Photographer B: Don't move, this is a gift. Photographer A: Help me take a photo, V. Yeah, Photographer B: I'm taking a photo.